We'll just post it.
Okay.
I don't wanna watch it
Okay. Thanks, Oscar. Welcome to the next portion of the Litchfield School Board meeting on January 19th. We called the meeting to order shortly after 5 p.m., but we didn't have a representative from LCTV here to record or stream. So, unfortunately, you've missed an awesome presentation from the LMS robotics teams. We'll post a video shortly on social media so you can see how they did at their latest competition. They did very well. Many awards were won. We're very proud of them. And then we broke briefly to go into non-public to discuss a student issue. And then we're back in public. And that leads us to community input. But our community seems to have left the building. So there'll be another community input session at the end of the meeting if anyone's interested in coming on down. And do you have that meet open?
It will be open. Yep.
Or
I have
you
it
can
ready.
join the Google Meet at meet.google.com/HAR-JANA-HNK. Brian's not allowed to join the meet anymore. So we'll move right along into I will close community input for the first session. We'll go into correspondence.
So we had 4 correspondence. The first 3 correspondence we received were prior to us changing COVID protocols to what the state is now recommending for quarantine. And the first 3, like I said, you're going to see have a general theme. The first one was January 8th from Jen White. She wants to know when the district would follow the new CDC guidelines for 5-day quarantine. And her big concern is her son had tested positive, and her daughter at home would have to wait an additional 10 days after his 10 days for a total of 20 days. And she's just inquiring when will change so that her daughter can return to school sooner. On 1/10/22, Erica Donahue, basically the same as Jen White's. She also said family member that will be quarantined for 20 days. That the guidelines not changed with home exposure. So she just wants to know so that, again, they can get back to school. Next one was on 1/11, Mike Brenton, questioning when his son can return to school. And he wants us to provide him with data and web links for what determination we made as far as processing and what date he could return. Thinks it's ridiculous we have not changed to the 5 days rather than 10, and expects his son to be back in school on the 13th or 14th, not the 19th, which was first directed to him. And the last correspondence we had was on 1/14/22 from Debbie Leary, concern about vaccinated people being able to come to work even though they've been exposed. And she says they're not trying to control the spread, they're trying to manipulate all to get the vaccine. The household contact is a household contact and both should stay home. And that was it for correspondence.
All right, that leads us to superintendent comments.
So thank you. The first topic is last night's community dialogue session. So this was dialogue session number 3 relative to the GMS project. The crowd was not what we were hoping. We've sent the postcards out. We've been blasting information out. And yet we still had a kind of smaller turnout than we had at session 2. Session 2 was better attended. But I think overall, Kyle and Suzanne kind of had a plan as to where they were headed and presented, the next phase of this, right? And so the renderings that they had, I think people found interest in. I think I stayed after and talked with some folks who were very interested in location of the school, what the right location would be, et cetera. So, I think overall we've accomplished what we set out to do. I think the renderings kind of show the sort of joyful school that I envision that we can create. I think people's questions were answered along the way. So I'm just curious if others had thoughts or feedback on it.
I was frustrated by the size of the number in attendance. I thought it was quite low. I'm going to chalk it up to a lot of cases of Omicron and people wanting to stay home hopefully and isolate and quarantine. But I saw a lot of familiar faces within the people that were there. I think maybe two people came who hadn't come before. And some good questions were asked. It's tough to keep hearing that, hearing people respond that we don't need it. We don't want it. We don't need it. And yet they don't have all the information yet.
I thought it was interesting that there were a couple people that commented and asked about the 5th grade going back to the elementary school, and was that in the plans? And they seem to want it there, but the rationale for not including it was that, the middle school is sized appropriately for the projections, and also because then it's 4 grades per school. So I just found that comment really interesting.
That's
we're
elementary
definitely,
school model goes up to 5th or 6th grade. That's what I grew up with.
me too, but you know what? Schools are different grades all over the place nowadays, like
Yeah.
different configurations.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it was important when both Kyle and Suzanne said, when we hired them, when we put out the RFP for the architects to, advertise or to come in and say, I'd like to take this project on, we said to build a K-5 school. That was our original criteria. And it was on the site of LMS. And as we've been at this, and I hope that's one thing that the public understands, that we have been listening, but we've also been exploring what does that mean? And what we've learned is the land can't support another school. That's the reality of it. You can't build out in front of LMS another school. And so that sort of has brought about the need to find another site. We already know the deficiencies of the existing site. They've been well documented. So, that really isn't an option. So it leaves us back to finding another piece of land somewhere else in town. And the other piece is that in analyzing where we are at LMS, if we succeed in getting the project passed and we get 2 additional classrooms, it really does accomplish the space needs at LMS. So they'll be comfortable, they'll have what they need for the 4 grades. But if you're adding on 5,000 square feet, which would be roughly having 1 more grade at a new school, it goes from 80,000 square feet to 85,000 square feet. And the cost of that starts with an M. It's in the millions. So, in trying to have a project that we can contain and present to the voters that they can support, using the existing real estate is an important strategy. So we feel like we've landed where we need to be. All right. Anything else on last night's session?
I would just remind the public that's out there that's listening to us that the video of it will be available on our homepage. So that if they weren't able to attend, they can at least view and they'll see what the presentation was.
There's actually Michelle has a copy. Kyle put together about a 15-minute overview of the needs assessment.
I watched it or listened to it, and I think the narrative really helps
And so
explain the slides.
Michelle now has that, and that will
Put
be
it on
added
there
to the
tomorrow morning.
GMS site. So that'll be available to the public, plus the entire session from last night. So
Great.
it's 2 new pieces of information that will be there. And I think encouraging people, especially if folks are questioning the why, that needs assessment is really, it's a quick video, 15, right?
11.
11. Oh, a little over 10. But investing that time will be helpful, I think, toward understanding where we are. Budget hearing. So last week we had the budget hearing. I'm just curious if anybody had feedback or thoughts from that. We're going to talk about the warrants in a minute, but I, just want to double check with everybody on the budget hearing. And then there was a meeting after where the budget committee continued to meet.
I think my only feedback is something real simple that Tina can ask the budget committee next meeting, that if Andrew is going to place on one of his slides, the town only went up 2.78%. It'd be really nice if you put in the school only went up 0.002.
I did put that in I did comment.
Well, he said that he'd
Yeah.
forgotten to put it in there, but
Yep.
if he is going to continue with that, it'd be nice if he could put that in for us. Outside of that, I think it was just very straightforward.
Yep. And at the meeting afterwards, I guess I could hold this to the reports, but they did vote to recommend the teacher contract and the support staff contract 900. So that was
700.
oh, I'm sorry,
Because there were
710.
two members absent.
Oh,
and
right.
That was the
Okay, so it
teacher,
wasn't-
and then the support staff was
Yeah, there was
a
one.
601
Yeah.
because one person had to abstain by conflict.
Right.
Oh,
And even
okay.
if the other two
Mhm.
people were there, they would have had to abstain. So it would have been, the
Mhm.
best vote they could have gotten on the support staff was
601.
6.
Yeah.
And they got 6.
Yeah.
So that's full
So, but the
support.
abstain should be the one in the middle, right? So I thought the vote on the warrant, let me look. I thought it was
No, I think
701 on the warrant, I thought.
It's in favor, opposed, abstained.
Oh,
So
okay.
it should
Yeah,
be
yeah, okay, sure.
601. Nobody was opposed.
So it'll be Scott. Yeah, the three of them who have spouses in
in the support
district.
staff.
Yep. Yeah.
That brings us to deliberative session. So a lot of emails going around today, but this is where it's landed. So we're presenting our warrant at 10 o'clock, starting at 10 o'clock. The emergency management team met on Monday, and there were 2 topics. So I'm just going to share these 2 with the board. But one was relative to the COVID numbers. And it's the responsibility of the governing bodies to provide the location, and then for the moderator to run the meeting within the location provided. Okay, so the recommendation from the emergency management group, which consists of police, fire, town officials, and school officials, is that we hold it in the gym. The feeling is that the gym provides better ventilation. There's more air volume in the gym. And the meeting that was held in the gym last year had no negative effect on the ability to conduct business. So we set it up the same way with the stage in the middle. And we checked in with Litchfield TV. They can support the gym and so forth. So, so the request of the board is for a motion to hold the meeting in the gym at Campbell High School. And then we'll pass that information on to the select board. Because we're going to meet at 10 o'clock until we're done. The select board will then have the town portion meeting starting at 1 o'clock. So they want to have a certain time to start. It feels like that's enough time for us to do our business and still have a lunch break in there. And, you know, if they choose to go to the auditorium, that would be interesting, but that's for them to decide, I guess.
Okay.
So.
Do we have to wear masks in the building?
So masks are currently required in the building.
Have a
However,
dial-in option?
you know, this is a public meeting, and so I don't know that we can.
Sit by myself. I don't
We
care.
had 2 sections last year,
Yeah.
I think. We had the masks and mask option.
We tried to set up in the cafeteria, but it didn't work. We had communication
Yeah.
issues, so
We had 2 screens on either side and you guys in the middle. I'm trying to remember. It was just hot. Wasn't it hot?
I don't think it was
Oh, then
on.
that was a different one.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
That was that summer one.
the
Oh,
feedback is it was uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So the bleachers are not the kindest to sit on,
No.
right?
The
So
basketball viewing chairs.
Yeah.
exactly.
Fold up chairs.
You bring your armchair, yeah.
Yeah.
Stadium
Well, we
seat.
could separate them in the bleachers. We can have
Yeah.
a smaller portion for.
I think that's what we did last year.
I think there was a gentleman. There was a
Standing.
family actually that was sitting off to the edge, right? So they weren't in the bleachers; they were in that
Yeah.
area, kind of where the door goes into the calf, and
Mhm.
it worked.
It worked.
So
Okay. So I'll make a motion to host deliberative session for the Litchfield School District ballot February 5th at 10 a.m. in the CHS gym.
Second.
Any further discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor of holding deliberative in the gym? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. 500.
thank you for that.
That vote I can count.
Michelle, can you communicate that the board voted that to Troy,
Mhm.
and then he'll let the select board know. So thank you. Next topic is just a reminder for the board, Charlie Niebling. So Charlie, we brought on to help us with communication relative to the projects, both LMS and CHS. Charlie was with a company, I can't remember the name of it, but the company dissolved, or Charlie is no longer with the company as of December 31st. And he had told us that. If you remember when we signed his agreement, he said, you know, this will only go through December 31st. We have kept Charlie on, especially with the work that we're doing relative to LMS. So Charlie produced one of the fact sheets that was available at the public hearing. Charlie also helped me with the fact sheet on the $5 million choice. And what I had done is we had put a not to exceed amount in his contract. So I said, well, you're still under that significantly. So we'll keep working under that contract into the new year because we need you right now. So, but Charlie's come forward with a new contract. The only difference in it is he's freelancing. You know, he's no longer part of a group, right? So otherwise the terms are the same. And it does not have, highlighted in yellow is a not to exceed amount, which I think we could establish a dollar amount. But my recommendation to the board is that we keep Charlie on. He's knowledgeable of New Hampshire law. He's the moderator in Merrimack Valley. He's the moderator for the town of Bosquen. He's been a school board member before. He knows his way around these things. And so I would recommend that we extend this contract and you give me a dollar amount for not to exceed. This actually takes us all the way through December. So it's assuming, you know, that we succeed in March and that we continue with efforts to communicate with the public about the school.
Do you have a ballpark of what we might expect?
We had done 4,000 for the fall. You know, so I think doubling that to say 8 is reasonable because it will allow us to.
You know how many hours he put in for in the fall?
Um,
If we budgeted for 4,000, did he put in for all of them?
he did not because he had 1,200 left in the contract. So he had
So
only used
8,000 is.
2,800, which I'm assuming is, yeah.
But now he's doubling down.
Well, you know, and now it's dual projecting.
Right,
So
right.
anyway,
We'll go all the way through. next
Well, we
December.
can
Okay.
void his contract anytime, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Because the oil was saying is up to, it doesn't mean we're gonna spend up to.
correct. And we can, you know, so we could just not authorize, like Charlie, at this point, we're going to put the brakes on this. You know, you're just putting an up to amount in it.
Do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve his contract with the dollar amount not to exceed $10,000.
I'll second. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor? Renewing the contract with up to $10,000? Say aye.
I,
Opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0.
I think in the coming months, he's gonna be putting in some work.
I agree.
Thank you.
And he's
That
been
it's helpful
invaluable.
because he has been very knowledgeable. So thank you. So next up, Governor's Proclamation. So I'm really pleased to announce we finally have the ability to make this announcement. But the Department of Energy put out a grant known as the SEED grant. It was for $80,000, and it was available to a school district or municipality, I think school district, in order to do an energy project in their schools. So we've been talking so much about LMS and the project that we're engaged in, and have learned so much about the high efficiency LED lighting that I asked Dick Henry to apply for the grant for us. And I said, take what we're doing at LMS and see if we can apply it at CHS. So the concept is that we will use money that the town has, which is the impact fee money, to do all LED lighting at the high school. And we applied for $80,000 to help with that project, and we won. And we were recognized by Governor Sununu and Council last week. And you can see, if you look at the photos, that
saw them.
Bill Lonergan, Sam Mahoney, who is a first-year social studies teacher, and I went to Governor and Council meeting, and we were able to meet with the governor. They read this proclamation for Campbell High School, and then the students stayed for a couple hours of the meeting. We were hoping to stay until our contract got approved by council, but there was a lot on the agenda, and they didn't get to us. So,
Very busy.
but these were your AP government and politics students
Nice.
who intimidated the governor. He's like, "Ooh, AP students. I don't know if I want you behind me." But at any rate, it really was a good event. And I just think it's important that the taxpayers, again, understand that, you know, we saw an opportunity, we went after it, and we succeeded. So this is $80,000 that we're not collecting from taxpayers in order to get this lighting project done. So it's really kind of exciting news. And it allowed us also to put a plug in. Right now there's an effort to restore the New Hampshire Saves program
Yes.
back to the
Big.
2020
Yep.
funding levels.
Mhm.
And if that happens, there's another $69,000 that would be available to us. So, we're going to get this project done. We now have approval. They're going to come in on second shift and start switching lights off in the classrooms.
Nice.
Students and teachers won't necessarily know until someday they come in and turn the lights on. It'll be a warmer, more comfortable lighting than what they had the day before. And so it'll go room by room and it'll save everybody money. It'll pay for itself in short order. So
Perfect. Thank you.
You're
That's
welcome.
exciting.
Next, CHS program of studies. So at the last meeting, Val and Bill were here. They presented on the program of studies. They were working diligently to get that updated, but it wasn't ready. And so I said to Michelle, let's just put a 2-week pause on it.
Mhm.
It's not uber urgent. I want to have a final finished product in front of the board. And so you will see it again on February 2nd, 2222. And so just be ready for that. And we'll make sure that we have that link to the board in advance. So I just wanted you to know
Thank you.
why that's not here tonight.
Do we still have access to comments or make suggestions?
No, not right now because I'm having it proofread and then
Okay.
I will open it up.
Okay.
Can you make sure that before we liven it up, that Mary says it's ready to go?
Yes, I sent it to you too, but
Yeah.
I will, yeah.
Mary. Thank you. All right. And that was my last comment. So
Great.
thank you.
Thank you. Any school board comments today?
I have a couple of questions, actually. Corey's not here, but we need Corey for the answers. I thought we were relighting the outside of LMS.
We're getting a quote for that. So Dick has the company down there. And so that will be coming. Yep. So it's underway. It's interesting because last night leaving GMS, there aren't that many lights. And
No,
Dark.
it's
They're like
horrible.
60 watt
dark.
light
Yeah,
bulbs.
it is dark.
It's
Yeah, it's
horrible.
like one by the
And,
jet.
and I'm wondering if it does. I know we don't want to spend a lot of money
It'd
there,
be
but
worthwhile to do.
the payback on this is so quick. So let me see if we can get.
You got to pay that. You can't. You leave that place when it's dark, and it's
You
you
can't
got to
see
feel your way to
anything.
your car.
Let me see if I can get both of those done. But LMS, I believe they were. So CHS isn't quite done. There's a couple of lights along the
Yeah.
front walkway that they don't have the right adapter for it, so they're going to come back to
The
finish.
same with the Cougar Iron Den or whatever they're calling it. The when I went by the weight room, that was
Ah.
dark, that corner.
Yeah.
But it is lit up there.
It
Man,
is.
I went, whoa, when I drove by.
At
Small
GMS,
aircraft.
I mean, it'd be small dollars. I think they only have 2 lights.
Well, I
One bulb.
counted 3 lights on poles, and
Yep.
then there's some lights on the building.
Yeah.
And so I think it's gives the payback is 4 to 6 months. We're going to be there.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
think it's probably worth.
That's the school that should
Short
really
money.
be lit up. Yeah.
And my next question: the ever-ending job, is that roof ever going to get finished?
Uh-huh.
It's in my report.
Oh my God, I've never seen something take so long.
Yeah, it's
Weather.
well, yes, but I would say that roofers plan on dealing with weather.
Mhm.
This has not been an abnormal year, right? So it really comes down to the number of workers who are available to do the job. And so
Staffing.
this is why when you go into the grocery store and you see literally blank shelves because truck drivers aren't delivering, all that stuff is what we're dealing with relative to the LMS roof. And it's actually, bids are out for the LMS project this summer, and we're getting feedback from some of the contractors that they are just feeling the squeeze. And I just don't know what's going to happen. I'm holding my breath, waiting for the actual bids to come in on the 21st, I guess tomorrow. So, or Friday. But it's not a good scenario. So yeah, you're right. It's taking way longer.
I just hope this is a lesson learned for the rest of the projects we want done at LMS, that in the contract, there's something in there that
Has an end date.
has an end date, otherwise there's a penalty.
Yeah, it's
don't
hard to do that when it's just a matter of they don't have the people.
Then don't bid on it.
I've had the conversation with Joe Campbell, the president of North Branch. he's had a great experience with this roofing company, and they came highly recommended. But but when they bid on it, they didn't envision what was going to unfold. So it's definitely one of those.
I'm just saying, I think there's gonna be a need to like build something into the contract as far as, the expectation of time.
It's distracting to the students and teachers, I'm assuming, because I had roof work above my head today during I-ready testing. And I thought someone was doing an Irish jig above my head. I think they were chiseling something from a heating vent or something, but it was,
Ice.
yeah, they were everywhere, and it is distracting.
The other thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm not sure what the specifics are, but I'm certain we can reach out to other schools, and that's self-transporting as far as for sports. Because a lot of teams did it this past year, a lot of schools, because they couldn't get bus drivers. So I don't know what,
What's our liability?
well, supposedly they just wrote up some rules and regulations, whatever, from the school board and allowed self-transportation.
Let me,
And
Still
I think of
scares
some of the
heck out
smaller,
me.
why?
Because one carload of kids going up to hockey has 4 players in it, and there's an accident, God forbid.
One bus has 30 kids on it.
But a bus is safer than a bunch of teenagers driving in a car.
I don't know. There's no seatbelts on a bus.
They have huge wheels. I'd rather see a school bus bringing my kid to school than a minivan.
Okay.
let me ask our athletic director to find out about the self-transport rules. I mean, we certainly should explore it because,
It's easier.
Although
Especially some of the
we've-
smaller clubs.
Easier as long as it doesn't turn into an expectation,
Right.
and we
because then it becomes harder for a lot of parents.
and we've done better with busing. I don't know. I don't think we've canceled stuff because of busing, unless I'm wrong. So I think we've done okay.
But hockey does it. And golf could probably do it.
And fishing.
Well, they need a boat. Grumpy.
I'm just asking. Like I said, I'm at Dara Pond. Next day, you're waiting for the soccer team to get there, and all of a sudden, a whole bunch of cars come. It's like, a caravan, and even though they're all just jumping out. When you talk to them, says, "Yeah, we can't get buses."
Well, actually, we transport the golfers.
Yeah, we do.
We transport them.
To Hidden Creek or Hidden Valley
Yeah.
or Hidden,
No, I want ranch dressing.
I mean, we.
the
The
buses.
district
School
The
district.
district.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else, Brian?
I think that's all I have.
Okay. Anything?
For
Any
now.
other school board
For now.
comments?
I just have a question about the competency days because I feel like it was,
I sent an email.
It was-
I sent an email.
I had so many questions about that. Like,
Talk to the principal.
I've sent an email
I
to the
sent an email
principal.
to the principal too.
I don't know how many questions they're getting, but I feel like it needs to be clearly stated that if your child is not failing or getting not yet met on the competency, that they don't have to go to school on Friday and Monday.
But they should if they have not yet met. I think it should be open up to kids who are failing competencies and kids who've been out, not just competency.
right,
If
there's
your kids are out
COVID
for 2
factors.
weeks or whatever, they should be allowed to go to school.
Especially through COVID right now.
Yeah, so
Right.
it's a perfect day for them
Mine
to
were
get.
just out last
did you,
week
Did I
for COVID.
CC you in my email?
You did.
Yes, and
So I don't know where the communication is. Was it in the newsletter?
Yeah.
Last week?
Yeah.
Okay.
but
So
parents don't know where the competencies are, whether their kids. The kids
Right,
might
they
know.
don't know how to find. I mean, it took me a good 5 minutes to find them again. I was like, okay, what's going on here? And then what happens if you have assignments that are not yet met? What
Those
happens
kids
to
should go
those at
in.
the end of the year? There's
you're
many-
asking.
They
I
won't
have,
go to
so-
the
I have
end of
like
the
a
year.
dozen questions
They
that
can't go to the end of the year because there has to be a cut. If you're out in September, they're not accepting your work in January. This is a perfect opportunity for those kids to go to school and catch up.
and then there was one competency that had no grade on it, no not yet met, nothing. Like, so where does that stand?
Well, that should
That's a
not be the
different
case
conversation.
midway.
That's only one class, one competency, but found one of those too.
But that shouldn't be the case midway in. There should have been some assessment.
It's
of
3 is
unless
the
it's
minimum,
an
I
end skill
believe.
competency they didn't get to yet. Which
Whole year class.
Yeah.
Potential they haven't taught yet. If it's semester class.
right.
Most
What class it was. So,
That's
Yeah.
mostly an elementary.
but I just
school.
feel like that there I mean,
No?
this is new, right? This mid-year competency makeup is new. You got freshmen coming in. We don't have a clue.
I think that a general communication from the principal is definitely
Just
needed.
on that, not in the middle of a newsletter, don't you
Right.
think?
But also, I would assume the teachers are reaching out to
paragraphs.
students and parents if they are going to require their students to come in to
Well,
make up a competency.
I-
I mean,
If
I
they
would
requ-
expect that
yeah,
as a parent.
That's the
So
thing.
I-
If they require,
But if your kid's been out,
But if
you're
you
not.
have-
He can't be meeting competencies if he hasn't done assignments.
they've been catching
But
up.
you're able to do the assignments on Google Classroom or whatever's posted. You may not get the best grade because you missed the lecture for it, but
right.
You're
Math,
able
I think
math
those kids
was
should be allowed
hard.
to
I
go to
mean,
personally. I think that's what I wrote.
got the notes, but
Let-
he's like, I
So
need
the-
help.
Let me ask, I'll
I
ask
don't
Bill to
know,
get a
this-
communication out tomorrow to all families, right? So some of that stuff should be clear. He and I talked yesterday, and the question was the accountability piece. So how do we know what was communicated to students? And how do we
Right.
know that students understood what it was they needed to do?
Why
And,
does
and
Liz
how
McDonald
are we
keep
going to
sending
log,
me emails?
on Friday? Because I would think a child could come in and spend all day with one teacher if that's what they need to do.
Mhm.
And so I just said, it's not like you're running a bell schedule. So what is the accountability piece in order to work this through? So we'll have Bill get something out to families tomorrow because it is different.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be the
I'll
same
forward you my
schedule?
email too.
Teachers still deserve their prep period and lunch and everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I guess I just want clarification too. Is it optional in the sense that if a student maybe isn't
Right.
not yet met, but is on the fringe of a C- and has on the fringe, that could be an extra day that they're getting this work. And if they're willing and or the parents are forcing them to go in for that, is that an option or not?
you don't want them sent home because
Let
they're
me get an
passing
answer 'cause
competency.
Right.
I'm not sure about
Maybe I
that.
don't
So-
think it should be.
I do too, but my kid says nope. If you don't have an NYM, we don't go. I have no school on Friday and Monday.
then
You
if
don't
they're
go, you don't
there,
have
are they
to go.
going to get released halfway through the day? Oh, you're all set.
Yes.
Oh, and then the parents have to go pick them up.
That's exactly what happens.
Oh, it does?
Mhm.
Okay.
So have
Walk
your
your
fun.
Friday.
Parents don't know that.
Let me ask Bill to review that.
Mhm.
So
Maybe they
I'll
should
have
just
him
have
watch
one.
40 minutes into this meeting and answer all the questions. And
No need to type them up again. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you for that feedback. I think those are good questions to ask, especially where this is kind of the first time we've done this in the middle of the year.
Definitely. Yeah.
And just so many kids have been out, and it's
Yeah.
a perfect opportunity.
Tyler, if they get done early, just tell them to go to Learning Commons.
Yeah, that's true.
Any other school board comments? Right, then we have the meeting, the public minutes from January 5th, 2022. I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Any further questions or discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? 500. That brings us to the LMS principals report.
Yay!
Yay.
Then we're gonna lose our audience.
I
when you
know.
leave.
It would be so lonely.
Well, it's been great to listen to the conversations that are going on so far. I am very sorry to say, those of you that are watching at home now, you missed a great presentation by our LMS robotics team. I think that was great. They came and shared their information, all the things that were going on. And, we're really excited about all the things that we have going on at LMS. So I want to just take a couple minutes to share some great things happening. So you have my principal's report. I don't want to read the whole thing, but I'm going to give some highlights and some information from the principal's report you have in front of us. Our enrollment has stayed the same. Our girls and boys basketball teams have been working so hard all season. They've had a solid season and are working together as a team, and they'll be wrapping up their season this week with their final games. They had a great scrimmage this week. I've gotten in to watch both the boys and girls play, and they're working together on teamwork, which is fantastic. So our school as a whole really wanted to take a moment to, in a public session, thank our small but mighty PTO, because we definitely have a core group of fantastic PTO parents who really did a great job celebrating our teachers and all the hard work that is going on in our building. And that was much appreciated by our staff prior to the holiday break. Just all the really cool little ideas and things that they brought in for our staff was fantastic. Those of you that didn't have an opportunity to see, we had a great honor for one of our LMS teachers. Miss Annika Vitans, who is our 8th grade science teacher, was recognized as a Wasabi Fenway Bowl honor roll teacher. So there were over 300 teachers from the New England area who were nominated by different individuals, and Annika came back in the top 30. So we were pretty excited to be able to share that. And she was featured on a page, and unfortunately the Wasabi Bowl was canceled for her to be able to go and be recognized at the Wasabi Bowl, but I think she has tickets for next year to be able to go back and be recognized there. So congratulations to her. Prior to the holiday break, we had a great example of teamwork in our building with the holiday door decorating contest. I know it seems weird to be talking about the holidays in January, but I haven't seen you since then. If you walked into LMS during those weeks, the excitement was really palpable with the students. They were so excited to work together as a team in their best groups to come up with a plan to decorate their doors. There were different categories that they had. If you have students that are part of LMS, you know, the creativity, the ingenuity, the fact that they had to tie it to their best subject or whatever subject their door was, to hear the conversations and the problem solving that went into it. It's not just about sticking construction paper up on a classroom door. It's about teamwork and solving problems together and coming up with ideas. And the creativity was amazing. I don't think I had enough small squares to insert all the pictures of all the doors, but I tried really hard in the links that week because there were so many cool ideas. Mrs. Tarr and the 5th grade organized the traditional Celebrate the Season. So we were really excited that we were able to continue to have that traditional activity as part of LMS. And many, many families came out and checked out all the gingerbread houses that were going on, listened to our chorus and band present and sing. And they were able to tie both the 5th and 6th grade in because the 6th grade had missed out with COVID last year. So we're trying to find ways to make sure that we can bring things back and to get as much back to normal as we can. Over $50 in donations were donated to the End 68 Hours of Hunger as part of that evening. The generosity of our LMS community was phenomenal with the LMS Giving Tree. There was quite a competition to really make a difference for 17 local Litchfield students, and over $2,600 was raised for those students. And then we come to kind of items of note. So one of the things that we were hearing feedback in is all of the kids that are in quarantine, the kids that are experiencing challenges with, oh my gosh, I'm out for 5, 10, 20, whatever the numbers were. Thank goodness we're down to 5 for most students, which is great. We're seeing a great change in our numbers and more kids back in the building, which is what we really want to see. But our teachers were working on building up a toolbox. So synchronous instruction was not something that every teacher was comfortable in being able to accomplish and meet the needs of the kids in front of them as well as the kids at home. So we've been working over the last 2 weeks on really building a toolbox of how can you meet the needs of these kids that are out of the building for 5, 10, 15, whatever the number of days are that they're out with the new guidelines. Teachers are offering now office hours for some teachers. We're finding teachers are recording the first 5 minutes of their instruction or their first 15 minutes of instruction, posting that to the Google Classroom. Some teachers are offering 1 period of synchronous instruction. So we have a lot of different options going on, and it's all coming up through communication. So the one thing I want to just be able to say really clearly is if your child is out in quarantine or out sick for a reason, communication with your child's teacher is going to be your best avenue. And actually in middle school, we advocate for them to take that responsibility on themselves and reach out to their teachers on their own. You can definitely supervise and have them CC you in the comment of the email as a parent, but encouraging them to be reaching out to help get that work met and meet their needs. You know, obviously they're missing a lot of instruction and we want to help them as much as we can.
Can I just ask that, I don't know when your next admin team is it tomorrow?
Yes, we have, yes.
Can you share that with the other principals? Because I think that's fabulous. I can tell you now in the high school, that's not happening. And it's something as simple as that, even just recording, the first 5-10 minutes of the day for the lesson plan, or even recording the entire day. I realize there's a lot of downtime, but I mean, at least the beginning, I think that's extremely important. And the fact that some of the teachers are doing synchronous, that's great.
Above and beyond.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
giving,
it's good.
giving the kids, because Tara, I think
Again-
you'll agree that, and same thing with you, Heidi, and Tina, you've been home and you've had kids home.
No.
No,
Sorry.
not yet anyway.
But you know what, as a
But
the office hours are also key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we felt was really important, Brian, and I just want to make sure I articulate this, is teachers are working super hard. Every teacher in our district is
absolutely.
working super hard at what they have. So when we've had our conversations over the last 2 weeks at LMS to really talk about how we're building that toolbox. So it's, you know, for Liz, how she does it, and for Heidi, how she does it. As teachers, it might be different, but having those options out there and available,
Yep.
and whatever options are available, it's really to help kids in the long run. So that's kind of what we have focused on, is looking at all the choices. You know, for you, it might be an email works really well and you're back and forth
Yep.
10 times in a class and the kid is fine. And we have that opportunity for teachers to meet
I'm
the
thinking,
needs.
especially in the high school, I mean, there's a lot of, just self-learn. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the first part of it is your teacher in front of you explaining, here's what the process is.
That
and here's-
was the hardest for my
Yeah.
kids last week.
And that's what it
You
is. I
know,
mean, it
it's like
seems
the
like
notes just don't cut it. You got to see the process.
Not only that, there's no structure. It's like the first day I woke up my son when he was in COVID. And my daughter says, "Why'd you wake him up?" I said, "Oh, he's going to start school, doesn't he?" And I'm thinking like remote, but it's like your day should start at the same time.
Mhm.
So if he, the first teacher is there to for the first 5 minutes recording himself and then sending it to him, why not?
And it's also about that where the kids are in regards to comfort. For some kids, their symptoms are mild and they're able to go ahead and work through the schoolwork as they're there. For others, they're a little sicker and they're not able to do it while they're out. So the teachers are working with them to help them get caught up afterwards, through best times, through other times during the day that they have available. So we've been spending a lot of time with our common team plan and talking about how we're
suspending PLCs so they can reach out to students. I think that's great.
yes.
It's not forever.
Nope.
Just for this little.
It's,
Nope,
it's a
for an
short window,
interim.
and
Yep.
I can assure you. So we're now doing twice a week COVID calls. We haven't gone
Great.
back to daily, but we did add one extra in. So Tuesday, Thursday is our meeting time, and during those calls, we're talking about exactly this, which is making sure how do we free people up so that they can be accessible. And so all the little strategies, and again, it depends on the teacher what they're able to embrace. But while we aren't offering synchronous learning, right? We're not saying you can't provide synchronous learning. So if there's somebody for whom that will work, we're asking them to take that on right now. We're in the Omicron surge through the end of the month, and it's going to probably trickle over into Valentine's Day or February vacation. So yes, we're trying to do exactly that at all three schools.
When my kids were out, I wasn't sure if it was an expectation that the teachers would post, if they were still posting things on Google Classroom, like all the assignments. And it sounds like they are,
Yeah.
so that's good. And then I reached out to, who was it? Oh, my guidance counselor, actually. I was like, what's the process? Should the kids reach out to the teachers? And so she helped me. She's like, yes, have them reach out to the teachers, but I'll reach out to them as well. So
That's a great
that was
advocacy
very
skill to
helpful.
start teaching as soon as
yeah,
possible.
so I didn't get, that was my only involvement, but I was like, okay, you needed to go out, you need to reach out to your
Make
teachers.
sure the
So
boys CC you on your emails.
They don't do that.
They
To
should.
also
I'm a helicopter
Ju-
parent.
just
There
a
you
quick
are.
clarification too, there's some privacy issues in regards to for us to communicate to teachers that a child is COVID positive. Is there's some challenges to that? Is it educationally relevant? How do we get that information? So for the child or the family to reach out to the teachers, that's your ability to disclose or not
Got it.
disclose.
I see.
How
Yep.
you're out and when you're out. They have
Well,
their
And you can say something as simple as I'm unable to come to school for 10 days.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
again,
Ding,
it's
ding,
all
ding,
in.
ding.
Right.
I'll be out of school for 10 days, and
Right.
so here's what I need to support my learning.
Right.
I was gonna say, I'll be in Florida for
Yeah,
10
I'll be in
days.
Florida.
All right. So
Thank you.
moving on from that conversation, talking about our construction, you've talked about this a little bit, so I won't go deep into it. We joke that we have had the elephant version of the Nutcracker on the roof. It was, hearing loud bangs, hearing sounds going on. We're working through it. We're moving classes around as needed when the noises get too loud. I know this week they have been back on the side that was finished. All the edging is getting done. So we're getting closer to that finish line. My last discussion with the foreman, we got a new foreman from North Branch, and it looks like the end of this month should be our target finish date, weather permitting. The next part talking about elephants is the elephant in the room of a very unfortunate occurrence in having to cancel the Washington, D.C. trip for all 8th grade students this year. There were a couple of mitigating factors that caused us to come to that conclusion. It was becoming evident that it was not going to be a class trip for all students. And that was something that, as I was hearing about the importance of re-entering this trip, was the idea of it was a time for kids to come together and give every student in the 8th grade that opportunity. With some of the details, as parents were either A, feeling uncomfortable and pulling their students away because of the Omicron surge and not knowing what's going to be happening in May. So we were having students withdraw on a regular basis. And then as we got further into the planning details, being able to see that there are vaccine requirements in Washington, D.C., we want to be respectful of both sides of the equation. If you're uncomfortable with sending your child because of Omicron, or you're uncomfortable with sending your child because of vaccination requirements, we want to have a trip that's accessible for everyone. So we're looking into that. I sent out a survey, have had about 8 responses so far, but we're looking at gathering some ideas of some great outside venues and ways that we can still celebrate this group of students, bring them together in something that truly celebrates the whole class. So
Can I
Kat,
just say last week was kind of a tough week, I think, on Facebook.
Yes.
There was a lot of
yeah.
complaining last week on different things,
yes.
but happy to report that wasn't one of them.
Right.
That Washington,
I will
D.C.
say I was
trip
shocked.
did not come up. So it seems like people
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
why you've made the decision that you've made, and hopefully some more people will provide some feedback for what you're looking to do as some sort of
Fantastic.
alternative.
And since you brought Facebook up, I'll say I'm not on Facebook in regards to any of those pages. So any complaints that are going there, I don't get. So if you want to communicate, have a challenge or something that's a struggle, please feel free to send me an email. Call the school. I'll be happy to talk. I'm working on problem solving every day, all day, but I'm not on any of those pages. So complaints that go there, I'm not hearing them.
That's the message that we post
Yeah.
more often than not. Yeah.
So for sure. And the next issue is one of those, but I was ahead of that curve from what I understand, because I do hear through the grapevine, but I'm not on the pages. So locker use at HMS, or not HMS, LMS has not been happening throughout this year for COVID reasons to begin with. And we had been looking at feedback from teachers. Is it something that's required? And teachers had a pretty consistent feeling as though, no, they like having their kids with their things with them in the classrooms. They like having them there and accessible. And we did administer a survey to teachers at the end of last week, I think it was. Now it's all running together when that was. Sent a survey out to teachers to ask, now that winter gear is here, what does that look like? So this week we were able to successfully distribute lockers to all students. They were able to get in and out of their lockers, which was one of the reasons that they hadn't been distributed before, because the lockers were, from my understanding, original to the building, and many of the locks on them could not even be unlocked with a key. So we were, and there was a lot of worry from the teachers that causes a lot of anxiety and stress for the kids when they can't open a locker and they're going to be late for class, or they can't open a locker and miss their bus. So we came up with the idea that we would be able to take the locks off so that there would be no worry or anxiety built for the kids as they started a new strategy mid-year. So 2 days of using the lockers, I can thankfully say nobody's missed the bus. They've been able to put things in their locker that they don't need throughout the day, including lunch boxes after lunch, including being able to go get their coats if they're going for a movement break. So I know that was one of the big concerns I was hearing, is that they were going to just be beginning of the day and end of the day. They have access when the teachers are giving them that access and have that need. So it's working out really well so far. So that's good news. This week we've worked on our winter iReady benchmarking, which we're really excited to get the results to see how we can start to group and offer some supports to build up those deficits or challenges that the kids are facing. Our staff continues to work on refining their understanding of competencies, and parents do as well. So it's just a reminder, although report cards come out on the 31st, it's a reminder that grades are rolling throughout the year for those year-long courses. So it's really just a snapshot in time for this point, and grades will continue to grow through the end of the year, so kids have opportunity to go back and revisit any competencies they're having challenges with. We used to have 2 book studies going on at LMS right now. One is called Tackling the Motivation Crisis by Mike Anderson. And the second one is called The Successful Middle School, This We Believe by Penny Bishop and Lisa Harrison. My COVID update, you can just cross off the numbers that are there because that was pre-update. So I'll give you my latest numbers. We have 3 students in 5th grade, 6th and 6th. 7th grade has 5 students. 8th grade has 7 students. And when I wrote these numbers on my paper at 3:30, I had 0 staff. I now have 1 staff, which we added to the list. So, we continue to see, although the numbers are trending down in regards to overall numbers because of the new guidelines, we continue to see cases coming in on a daily basis of new cases and new students. So looking at those numbers that are on the bottom of the COVID sheet is really important to show the number of overall people affected in our building. We will continue to maintain mask required status through, I'm not sure, Dr. Jetty, what was the latest date?
We've extended it through January 28th.
Okay.
And then we're going to take a look at where we stand at that point. But
So as a district, that is a decision that we made. And then my final piece of information is regarding a really successful, I know there were a lot of questions about me bringing a new fundraiser to our Washington, D.C. and how that would work out. We were super successful with the cheesecakes. We raised over $4,000 for individual students towards their DC trip. Obviously, as we mentioned, DC is not happening, but those monies are accounted for, will be available to those students to use for any other activities or things that we do for this year. And then the students in the 8th grade, if they don't use the monies that they raised for the cheesecake, it will follow them up to Campbell for any activities they have there. And we had students in 6th and 7th grade that started to build their kitty for moving forward. So we were excited about that.
I love that. Also,
That's
the
great.
cheesecake was delicious. Thank you. for
Oh, you're
providing
welcome.
that.
It really was.
We had it at our last meeting before Christmas.
It was
Who
very
brought the
tasty.
snack this time?
What's that?
Who brought the
Nobody.
snack this
Yeah,
time?
nobody brought
I think it
snack.
was Liz or mine.
I ate the snack. I ate the snack. My kids.
So that is the, oh, and the last thing, and yeah, that's it.
Jen,
The
I
end
have
of
a
my report.
question for you,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
it's come up on Facebook. Did you ban Spirit Days?
Not at all.
I wouldn't. Yeah, that is because there was concern there was no Spirit Days before Christmas, or I don't
So
really.
Here's a tricky thing. For those of you that know Mrs. Sid, she was our student council leader extraordinaire. She is retiring this year. She has announced it, I think, here the last time I was here. She was our student council leader liaison.
Mhm.
There was a little bit of a hiccup in the transitional phase. So Mr. Frazier has been up and running, but we didn't have our elections until the first week of December. So those kids are just getting their feet under them. We're starting to get some ideas. We've had some ideas about dodgeball tournaments and things moving forward, but we had to give those students an opportunity to get into the student council to understand how
So
they're
you
gonna-
didn't do a giant mandate. None. We will never have a Spirit Day again.
We had
Okay, just
sports,
checking.
we had
That doesn't
sports
sound
day.
like you.
We had sports day last Friday. We've had wear pink day. We've had ugly sweater day. We've had lots of individual days. They just haven't run in the course of a
I
full
like
week.
the individual days. It makes them a little more special. But
Spread out
thank
special.
you for the clarification.
Absolutely.
and you had a great door decorating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of
Plenty of
spirit
spirit.
building stuff, so that's it's confusing. But
Wanted to
you
get
can't
that.
believe what you read on the internet.
Any other
Not
fake
necessarily.
news you want to clarify right now from
No,
Facebook?
no. I was just, I know, no. I just wanted to clarify that.
Definitely not. I am all about spirit, what we can bring in, how we can bring our school together and make it a better and bigger community where everyone's welcome.
Yep. I think it helps staff morale too, personally.
Oh
When
yeah.
you're dressed up like
They
a
were all wearing their
Christmas tree.
football jerseys on Friday.
See, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, too bad it didn't work out for us.
Didn't
But
work out
we
so
won't
well.
talk about that. On to next year.
Yeah.
Upbeat and welcoming. So yes.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank
Any
you.
other-
Thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
questions for Jen?
You're welcome to stay and you're welcome to go. It's your call.
I appreciate all of you, but
We appreciate you too.
I think I'm gonna head home right now.
Thank you.
All right. We have a BA's report section.
So Mr. Zbicki is not here this evening, so I'm going to walk through where we are with the warrant. And so I clicked the link, and just a reminder that we do have to reconsider a couple of articles here, and I also want to talk about some information that we got today. So warrant Article 1, the board had voted to recommend it by a vote of 5-0-0. And then it went back to the budget committee, and I was a little bit surprised because I didn't think the budget committee was going to take further action on the budget, but they did. They had a motion to cut an additional $150,000 specifically out of the special ed lines, and that motion passed. And so the numbers that are now in Warrant Article 1 are 150,000 less than what you had approved or had recommended. So we've updated it. You'll notice that our operating budget is now down 41 cents per thousand, right? So it's a pretty good reduction. We came in at 29 cents. The budget committee took another $14,000 out, which really didn't reduce the rate, but then the 150 made a big difference. So it was another 12 cents out. So we're bringing it back tonight for board discussion and revote as to whether to recommend it, or if you don't recommend it, you're essentially recommending the default budget is the budget that you want to see go forward.
Shouldn't that say 810?
Which one?
The default budget.
So that, you mean this vote down below?
Yeah.
So
Did you vote, Tina?
no, this is the default budget. That's not a vote on the default, right? That's
Oh, okay.
you're voting on the operating, and then if it fails, then the default budget is what goes into place. So we probably should
Do they?
move this over so it doesn't look like they voted on the default budget.
That's exactly
Oh,
what.
oh, I see what
Oh,
you're
I
saying.
see what you're
I
saying.
see.
But you
Okay.
wouldn't vote on the.
Right.
lower
No, we'll
budget.
move
Right.
it over to the.
But the
Yeah.
budget committee voted
She did vote on it.
900 to
She
recommend this budget. And so that is an accurate vote from the
Right.
budget committee.
So you voted for that?
I
by
did.
accident?
I was not paying attention.
Okay.
Yes, by accident.
That's fine.
But I
You wanna
will.
Vote no on this, yeah, okay, thanks, just.
So let's talk about it for a second. Because
Let's make a motion in a second.
Well,
and
there
then
you go.
discussion. I'll make a motion to recommend Article 1, the operating budget, at a total of $23,766,634.
So what we're seeing here is not.
A
accurate.
second for
So no-
discussion.
Second for
Okay.
discussion. Yeah.
So, so when the budget committee made the motion to cut it, their rationale is that the reserve fund has money in it, so that if in fact they erred and cut too close, there is money in the special ed fund, which we haven't tapped into.
There's 100,000 in it at least.
I think
Gosh, I'll get
it's-
you that balance.
Yeah, I think
Michelle,
it's a-
can you look up the balance in this
I think
special
it's at
ed?
least 150.
I think it's a little over 150.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm pretty sure, but I'll see if I can find it.
I will tell you that Devin, as the director,
Mhm.
says, Mike, I delivered a very lean budget.
Mhm.
There is no wiggle room built into that.
I think the
I don't
entire
know.
admin team delivered a very lean
Yes, they
budget.
did.
And she
Gonna
said,
take
I
one
am
kid.
nervous. And I said to
One
her,
kid.
and I will also tell you that her administrative assistant, who helps to administer
Mm-hmm.
that budget, came in and said, what are they thinking? There's no fluff in there. And I said,
Mhm.
I
Well, you
understand.
know. Yeah.
We've explained that. But their sense is that the 150,000 sitting in the fund is available if it's too tight. Now, here's, so you do have that to fall back on. Here's the worst case that, you would draw that, and then next year you're making it up in the operating budget because you have to add it in, and you're also trying to replenish that fund. So, I mean, that's a reality that the board has to wrestle with and the public has to wrestle with when they're.
Keep in mind, we delivered a budget that's basically flat.
Yep.
And with that, you have insurance costs went up. What was the percentage went up on insurance?
I don't know.
8%.
It was close to 10%. The teacher's contract, the LSS contract, those are all monies that we have to pay them. So that's like another, total, like $400,000.
Yeah.
So basically our budget is $400,000 less than it was last year.
Correct.
And they still look to trim it, the amount of money. Yet you turn around, the town can go up 3% and they're happy because they're under the cap. I've been saying this for years. It's like, yeah, the town's got a cap, but it all is based on revenue the town gets in. So you take a look at what the town budget is doing. It's going like this. And now ours is just this. It's even less than this because it's going down because
Mhm.
you have to take all those salaries and benefits and still pay them
Yeah.
from
bigger
last
piece of the
year
pie.
and get the same budget.
The other piece of the rationale was, yes, we have that capital reserve fund, but they did look back at
The
trends.
town has capital reserve fund too.
No, I know. Let me
Big
tell
one.
you what the budget committee was thinking when they made that reduction, because I think that's pertinent to the discussion. Is they cited the underspend in that department over the last few 10 years.
Which has been returned every year except for one.
Right, and we
And
made that
even
point.
then, it was only a portion of it that we used for something else.
Absolutely. We've always returned more than that amount.
But they rationalized that,
Yep.
we don't give it all back all the time. That's not true.
And I think that was what I
Except for
viewed
one
as
time.
for me, I perceived that was the crux of the
One time.
cut. It was you're no longer promising to give us that money back to taxpayers.
Mhm.
It was that
Promising
gentleman's
the
agreement
budget
that they were
committee.
upset about.
What's that?
It's because of a gentleman's agreement that we don't agree with.
So anyway, that's what happened. And next time we meet, I will open that. I will see if I can bring that vote back up so that I can vote against not recommend the budget as a member of the budget. But that's probably after deliberative. So we have
Are
a
you
motion.
meeting tomorrow night, or is it, no?
You won't be there.
Huh?
You won't be there.
I will be there if they meet after the school board, after the school district deliberative. If they meet after that to do the school business, then I'll be there for that.
I think the budget committee's put the board in a difficult position because, our goal, our strategy was to present a very lean budget because there are other items on the warrant that we want to see pass. If you go down the warrant, it's 41 cents projected savings for the taxpayers on the budget. You then have 29 cents increase for the collective bargaining, so you're still net negative 12. You then have 8 cents for the support staff, so you're still negative 4. You've just funded 2 CBAs and you're still saving the taxpayers 4 cents. And then you get to the LMS project, which is a complete renovation of the project, and that's projected at 16 cents. So you go up 8 cents overall. This is an incredibly responsible budget, an incredibly responsible warrant. When you think of everything we're doing, 2 collective bargaining agreements,
Right.
supporting all our staff who have just been straight out throughout the pandemic, we're providing them with a stable working environment, right? And we're fully renovating the middle school to get it ready for the next 30, 40 years. And it's costing taxpayers hardly anything because of the work of the admin team and the board to deliver that budget. And the budget committee, they helped a little bit with the extra 150. So, but still, if you vote against it, the public, if they follow the lead on that and they support the default budget, it skews all of that. It really causes the taxes to go up significantly. So it's kind of a mystery as to why, with all the work the board did, why the budget committee went deeper. And especially in an area that we have said, please don't touch it. That's not a smart cut. There are other cuts that we're like, we don't like them, but we can figure it out. This one, I'm worried about.
The thing is, by sending a message of a no vote from the school board, it's not going to make the public vote for the default budget because they're not going to. They're not going to turn around and vote for something that's, what's the amount, $500,000 more. It's just, I think it just sends a message to the budget committee that we did everything that they asked as far as cutting. It gave them probably the leanest budget I've ever seen, and they still nickel dimed it for 14 grand on a $24 million budget. They sat there and nickel dimed for $14,000 through the whole process, and then just wham, take 150,000 out of spend. It's not right. You start, talking about, eliminating 10 stamps or, 15 pieces of paper. It's like, it's ridiculous. $14,000 on a $24 million budget. Why waste everyone's time? You want to just say, hey, listen, we're going to cut 14 grand. We don't have to come in. That's just my feeling.
Any other comments or just questions?
I was really disappointed that they didn't support the middle school. I was surprised, I don't understand it. I mean,
I
we're
think
trying to we're trying to get our schools ready for the next 20 years, right? And then we're trying to move forward with Griffin. So, we have this capital plan. That's what the budget committee wanted, right? And worked very hard. You know, your first couple of years here was all about building the capital plan. And you know what? I mean, why bother if you're not going to support stuff like this?
I think the more information that comes out about the LMS project, and once we get the costs nailed down, right now we have kind of a ballpark, and we're hoping that as bids come in, that price will come down quite a bit. And so they will need to vote after deliberative. Will need to re-vote on that one, because we anticipate the price changing on that, right? The cost items. So we may get more support for that.
Well, they can't vote to recommend after deliberative. They can't
that
vote to
again?
recommend warrant articles after deliberative.
Yes, that's what they
If
usually
they're
do.
amended
Yeah,
at
if they're
deliberative,
amended.
that's what they've done. So
After.
after,
Not
after
after.
deliberative,
Like right after.
after the
Well,
body,
yeah, well, the budget, yeah.
All right. Shall I call the vote?
you want to, I mean, if you support it, you're supporting the number. If you vote against it, you're recommending the default. If you abstain,
No, not necessarily. I don't think we're recommending the default. We're just not recommending the
We don't
budget.
recommend the operating
oh,
budget.
right, but
We've done it before.
the only other option to that is the default. So
So the budget's still there. They can still vote on the budget. Public can vote on the budget. They don't have to vote for the default.
At deliberative, the public, couldn't there be a motion to add that 150 back in
They could.
at
absolutely.
deliberative
And
by
14,000.
somebody? Right. So the vote right now is, do we support the 23,766,634
Correct.
Correct.
As it currently stands.
as
right.
it stands, which includes that $150,000.
Right.
Right. Right. And I do not. I mean, we have a special education director for a reason who put together a really tight budget. I was really proud of this budget. I actually thought they did a really good job putting these numbers forward, and we went through that process. We answered questions. Devin answered these questions. I can't understand where this I would hope with all of the communication that we've been trying to improve between the school board and the budget committee and having more of these joint processes, that last minute large changes like this could be avoided and could have been discussed ahead of time. And so I can't support the budget number as amended by the budget committee.
All right. I'll call the vote. So we're voting for recommendation.
Correct.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain? 050. Not recommended.
And it's going to be asked at deliberative. It's real simple. It's
Yeah.
like, why don't we support it?
Mhm.
And
That cut was too deep.
So Article 2 hasn't changed. Article 3 is on there. The budget committee did not vote on that one. They did, you can see that we've reflected this, that the budget committee recommended Article 2 for the teachers 700. Article 4, you can see their vote is now reflected at 601. Article 5 has stayed on. Article 6. So let me just talk about Article 6. The budget committee took the vote and it was 360 to not recommend it. Once we get what I think is, when the bids come in over the end of this week, and we get a chance to analyze them next week, that at deliberative, there may be an opportunity to change the numbers and reduce it, would be my hope, just to reflect the final bids. And if that were to occur, then there would be, I think, another vote of the budget committee, because the numbers will have changed. And we need to continue to have outreach with budget committee members who have questions about this. So the chair sent along questions from member Stevens, and so we'll work to get those answered, right?
And member Douglas too.
We answered hers, I thought.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they're additional since the other night, since the
Yes.
hearing. So
Yes.
we have additional questions to answer,
Mhm.
and we'll keep working at trying to get those
Yeah.
answers done.
I do think some of those negative votes were just because he didn't have the information at that time. So
So we'll stay at it. We'll keep communicating, make sure that our consultants are able to engage with people and engage in dialogue. So hopefully they can answer everything on it. Article 7, then, the budget committee did recommend it 630, so that's there for you. And then the last thing I wanted to bring to the board is Michelle and I had a conversation with Gordon Graham today, because as the issue of GMS has emerged, we're faced with a dilemma. So I'm going to share with the board what the dilemma is. In order for the school district to buy land, the voters have to approve the purchase of land. That means you have to have a warrant article that says this piece of land for this amount of money, and the voters have to weigh in on it. If we don't have a warrant article for that this year, our next opportunity is next year. And that's going to put a real delay in the project, because if our architects can't design a school for a site specific, it's going to tie everything up. So I tried every Hail Mary pass I could to, find a way to get something on the warrant this year. And there just isn't. The opportunity that we're forced to look at is petitioning the court for a special meeting due to an emergency. And Gordon said there is plenty of case law to support going forward to a judge and advocating for an emergency. So this isn't going to be a no means no scenario, because the voters aren't going to be voting on anything, right? So we could go forward to say we have this purchase opportunity that's come forward. It's important for the parties to settle this, and so therefore we need to have a special meeting to do that. So I just want to be clear, even last night I was hoping that we were going to have some sort of an additional warrant
We
article.
can't just say we authorize the district to have a special meeting.
You cannot. You have to have, the warrant article has to be specific to the purchase. So you have to say, land from Mrs. Jones located at this spot for this amount of money.
What's a special meeting? Is that like in the auditorium special meeting, or is it a vote?
I believe it's a vote. I believe it's a election.
Well, we'd have a special meeting to present,
Right.
and then they would have to vote, yeah.
At the special meeting?
No,
You would
We'd still have to bring it.
go to
on
the
an-
polls, cast a ballot.
we did with the teachers.
Yeah, that didn't go over well.
They won.
I know.
So the other piece is that, so Michelle and I got off the phone. Did I try every Hail Mary I could, by the way?
You did, you
It was
did.
like-
But there was another thing he talked about.
But then he called us back and he said, I've been thinking. And he said, has Litchfield adopted the provisions of, and I got to pull this up.
The unassigned balance contingency.
Yep, the unassigned balance contingency. And basically, he then goes through this legal case, and I'll share this email with the board, but you can see it arrived in my inbox at 3:50, right? So we haven't had a ton of time to digest it. But basically, the law was amended in 2020. And basically it says, notwithstanding any other provision of law, a school district by a vote of the legislative body may authorize indefinitely until specific precision the school district to retain any unused portion of the year-end unassigned general funds from the preceding fiscal year in subsequent fiscal years, provided that the total amount of year-end unassigned fund balances, unassigned general funds does not exceed in any fiscal year 5% of the current fiscal year's net assessment under RSA 198.5. And then prior to expending that, the board shall hold a public hearing on the action to be taken with such funds. Notice of the time, place, and subject of the hearing is published in a newspaper or general circulation in the relevant municipality at least 7 days before the meeting is held. And an annual accounting and report of the activities of the retained general fund shall be presented to the board of the district and published in the annual report. Why, is there bad stuff in there? Is he projecting it? All right. I don't know how to do that.
Okay.
So anyway,
Can you just email that to us?
sure, let me forward that on. But here's the piece that's important is at the end. What Gordon's recommending is this. That we adopt the following provision. So shall the district adopt the provisions of RSA 198.4B2 enacted in 2020, which allow the district to retain up to 5% of the district's net assessment in any year, allows the expenditure of any amount retained after the school board first holds a public hearing, and further requires the board to include a report on the detailed fund balance in its annual report to the district. So his thought is that this gives us a funding mechanism. And so then when you go back, if you decide to go to court, you've retained this fund balance and you then have the funds to enable the purchase of the land. Okay, so you can actually go forward and say, we have the money and now we want permission to spend it, right? So he feels that this actually gives us a stronger position. And what he said is he was actually relatively terse, I guess, in his analysis that, school districts have been at a disadvantage. There's no business in New Hampshire that isn't able to keep its profits and to keep growing based on those. And he said, only public schools, towns are able to retain
Right.
this. And he said, only public schools have been starved of that. And the legislature recognized it and added this provision. And so his feeling is that we should adopt this. Now, Michelle, can you just provide the history on it? Because we haven't.
did bring it when it was up to 2.5%, the first legislative rule. We did bring it forward with similar language, and it was very confusing for people to understand. I will say it was, no matter how you explained it. But
And all they saw.
the
was
whole
is-
thing was people were concerned that it was going to be, oh, what if we have a fund balance of 700,000 and you could keep 300,000 of it? That's not fair. And so it not only the confusing language, but the amount, they wanted an amount certain and they voted it down.
Well, this has a cap up to 5%, right?
Town could keep up to 18%.
Wow.
I think that's what he said, right?
Yeah.
18%. But he also said this is not an appropriation.
Because it's already funded.
That's right.
And it's interesting because to that point, you're keeping money that's been allocated,
That's right.
right? So, and you have to issue a report on it. It's not as if you
You're
just
not
keep the
spending
money
it like
somewhere.
crazy or anything. You're just holding it. And we're allowed to hold for a year anyway. So this is just holding it a little
So this
longer.
would be a warrant
It would have to be a warrant.
because it's a legislative body, which is the voters.
It would
Correct.
have to be.
And what he said is this is warrant article, this would become number 8, or if you want to renumber them and put it somewhere else, you can do it. And he said it is a non-appropriation. Only the budget, only the school board will vote a recommendation on it.
I believe he also said,
There's no need to take this to the budget committee.
right, and I
because
believe
it's
he
not.
also said it was a non-lapsing special warrant article.
I have to double check that with him. He used that language a couple of times.
He
I'm trying to
did.
remember if it was.
And I
relative to
thought
this.
that's what he meant, but it is, you're right. Only the school board has to vote on it because it is a non-appropriation.
So, hot off the press,
It is a possibility. We
Hmm.
just need to really clearly define what that money is slated for.
I think what we would say, so here, so let me back the truck up.
Mhm.
The money that is, go back to Article 7.
Mhm.
And when we established the Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund, we said the purpose is funding the study, planning, and cost of new construction. It does not say purchase of land. So you cannot take any of the money that is in that reserve fund and use it for land purchase. So now we're presented with two problems. One is we have to have a specific warrant article on the specific piece of property, which we don't have today, and we don't have the funding. This would allow you to solve the funding question if the voters supported it, because, we could say verbally, our intent is to retain that for land purchase, and our intent is to come back to you if the courts grant us permission to purchase. If we can find a piece of land, our intent is to come back at some point later this spring or in the summer and ask for permission to buy that land.
Just
using
the
these
land.
funds.
And if it's voted down, then those monies can still be spent, but not on land.
they can be spent in the spend ahead manner that we've been, the board still has that authority. But this would give you a funding mechanism. So honestly, I just thought of Article 7 as the Capital Improvement Fund as the GMS fund,
It's not.
but it can't cover land because of the way we set it up. So it's like a double.
When do the warrants have to be final?
Monday. Oh, boy.
Exactly.
That $125,000 can buy some lights.
Say that again?
It can buy some lights outside at GMS.
Oh, yeah.
The 125,000.
Be a lot of lights.
It's a lot of lights.
It's a lot of lights.
It's not like that building's not going to need improvements in the next couple of years anyway, but it'll be used.
I think we need an Article 8.
Well,
Is that what you're asking?
I'm proposing that we add Gordon's language, which he says has successfully been adopted by countless school districts. I'll find his exact wording in there. It's a little bit snarky, but it's like, you should be doing this. This is, the voters have already said you can have this money to operate the schools, and it allows you that ability to. And I think we just have to work on how we sell it. When was it last in front of the voters?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, the law was 2012 the first time, so.
I think it was 2012.
Yeah, I
It
think
was
so.
that year. I know I said 2011 because we were putting the budget together that year for 12, but yeah, it was 2012 because Steve Martin was trying to explain it. I think, I don't remember. I think.
And everyone just saw it as a slush fund. That's
It
how
was,
they kept
yeah,
it.
it was
And I'm
just.
afraid that's what's going to happen again unless I know it's you said it might be a special non-lapsing thing, but if it's truly if our intent is just for this purpose, this 1 year, because we have been committed to returning the funds, I would hate for people to vote it down just because they think it's a slush fund when we actually have a real need for
But
it.
you can't put what you're using it for in the article. Then it becomes an appropriation.
So what you have to do
And you
is
can't add it.
you have to verbally
appropriation
explain
at
to
this point.
people that,
Mhm.
look, we've been responsible at returning.
Yeah.
I mean, look, 2 years ago, we returned 700 and something.
Right.
It's not like we're looking to keep the money.
Mhm.
This is for a need that is presented, and it's a way for us to be able to fund it.
Unfortunately, that message is going to get out to a small portion of people.
Right.
A larger portion of people see that as a big spend and, support it.
Can we cap it to just this fiscal year?
We'd have to ask Gordon that question.
If what?
If we can just do it just for this year as a one-time, here's the issue, this is
I
the,
don't see why not. I mean, you can buy a fire truck and you only buy it one year.
yeah.
I think you could.
We'd still need to have a special election to spend the money, right, for the land acquisition.
Correct. So even if this allows you to retain it,
Mhm.
and to say our intent is to do this, you still have to go back to the voters and say, can we spend this amount on this piece of property?
Right.
So the voters do get that final say on the whatever comes forward. That's assuming the courts grant it, although Gordon felt confident they would. Another,
So I have a question. If
I think you could say it's zero
any
taxes.
money that you held on to, do you have to spend it that next year? Or can it be held forward even further?
Well, I think
I'm just trying to,
if the voters were to pass that RSA, we would adopt it and that it says there's no limit on it, right?
It used to be
goes-
2 years. You could only hold it for 2 years, but they changed it.
I see.
So Michelle, to the non-lapsing special warrant,
Mhm.
that was a different strategy that he had talked about. 'Cause
Well,
there was-
maybe it was.
There
yeah.
was another school district that they advised that was trying to build up a fund for land purchase. And so they did it as a
That was it. That
non-lapsing
was it.
fund. And basically it allowed them to put money in there for 5 years. And then after 5 years, it would start to return back.
Okay.
And that was the way they did. This is a different strategy.
you're
'Cause He
right.
said,
There was so many
he called back
things.
to say, have you done this? And why haven't you done this? And I said,
Because it won't pass.
it was brought forward once and it
Right.
didn't pass, but that was once 10 years ago.
Right. And the-
If
and
many
the
other
reason-
towns have passed it, I don't know, what are we missing? You know,
It's
like what?
basically a savings account. It's another, you've already appropriated this money. We can hang on to it for these purposes.
And the reason you can't bring an article with an appropriation in it forward at this particular time is because the budget hearing has already been held.
If we sell GMS, will that money go to offset the price of the land? Like,
Absolutely.
I think that would make me feel better if we could sell the GMS land to offset whatever money we raised. Or, do you know what I
I
mean?
think that's the goal, but we can't move forward with designs or anything like that.
Right.
If
but-
we- yeah,
That's another angle. I like to feel like I'm getting a bargain or something
Absolutely.
where we'll get some return from what we already have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You've got two assets, right? You have the building itself,
Mhm.
would have some value to somebody. So even if it's end of useful life as an elementary school, it doesn't mean there's not some other
Right.
repurposing of it. And then you've got the land value. And so you have two lots that are there. It's the original Griffin School is on kind of one tract, and then the LMS property is the other tract. So you do have two assets: the land itself and the
We plan on putting it up for sale. We're not going to hold on to it for anything.
personally. I'm not interested in maintaining an empty building. So
Right. Yeah.
I think part of the assumption is that, and we may not have an answer. We may not be going forward saying, this is what the new school is, and this is what our plan is for the old school. We
Yeah.
may still have to figure that out, but I think it's up to I think it's the responsible thing when we're done,
Mhm.
assuming we get to that point, we've got
Right.
a new site, a new school, kids are there, and, do we want to hang on to some, an empty building?
No,
No.
we want to give that money back to the taxpayers
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
pay,
always a good sell.
pay
Yeah.
off the building. Yeah.
Thanks for the loan.
Fronting the money.
So the recommendation is to follow Gordon's recommendation, and that is to add Article 8 with a vote from the board to enable that RSA as written.
Do you have what that RSA is?
It was all the stuff I read. You made me nervous that there's something in my inbox. So
Yeah, I enjoyed
Did you email
looking
it
at
to
that
us
myself.
no, let me do that.
Or
Yeah.
liven it up on the agenda.
Let me do that. Let me copy and paste the article.
I have the
We'll
article.
make it
but-
pretty later.
Yeah, I pulled up the article, but what would the warrant look like, I guess?
So I'm just going to call it Article 8, and then I'm going to paste. That's it. I'll take care of the dots.
Don't worry about it.
Oh,
We'll fix it later.
District's net assessment, is that the same as Hunter's Fund, year-end funds?
So the net assessment is the amount to raise from taxes. So
Okay.
if we raise, so the budget's got the 23 million, you get grants and, other funding sources. So let's say that we're raising 20 million from general taxation. That's the net assessment. And so you can keep 5% of 20 million. And if I was the BA, I'd know exactly what that amount is, but I don't know it.
Mhm.
But it's probably 20. I would think somewhere in that ballpark. And so you could keep 5% of it.
That's $1 million.
We don't even need that much.
Right.
Okay.
But
And we
it's usually much less than 20 million. I mean,
And I think if you think about it, we've committed, what do we budget? We budget to return 200,000 every year. That's our plan, right? We try to come as close as we can to the 200,000, and we've been good about honoring that. So if, you've got a purpose for something, this is just one more way to keep it on the books to accomplish that.
I understand what we're trying to do, but this won't pass. Ain't no way.
I think we just need to explain why and how and
So the question is, what I'm noodling on is what's the estimated tax impact? I think it's 0
It is 0.
because you've already raised the
We already
money.
have it, yeah.
Well, there's no tax impact because it's not an appropriation.
Right.
Some people just look at the tax impact.
So
and
the
that's how they vote.
alternative to not doing this is everything gets pushed back. I mean, that's what I'm
Right.
hearing.
The alternative is that if the court grants you permission to have a special meeting, you have to do 2 things in that meeting. Get approval for the land and raise and appropriate the money for the land,
Mhm.
right? Because you don't have the ability to pull the money out of here. So
Right.
you have to raise and appreciate it. So it's
That's
a
why the
2-part
court
warrant.
wants to see that they're
And it
more
would be-
likely to grant that if the funding is already
It's already there.
there.
And the special meeting would, it would carry a tax impact. You're asking people to vote on a warrant article that raises and appropriates. So if it's $100,000, it's 8 cents. And you're going to multiply 8 times however many 100,000s you have. So versus this would allow you to have some money in your pocket.
Well, it doesn't, I feel like I mean, if it's an option that we have, I think it's worth putting it on the warrant and letting the people weigh in. We explain where we're coming from with it, and we hope that we get the support we need. Any other thoughts?
I think I'm struggling with. I understand what we're trying to do, and I understand why we're trying to do it. I'm struggling, and it's through no fault of your own, with the last minute language. Like, for example, net assessment. I would want to define that somewhere, or I would want to, the question that we ask. I feel like a voter would want to know what that means if we could, have a comma or a definition in parentheses or something. So I struggle with approving it, not because I don't necessarily agree with the concept, but because I feel like we need a little more time with the language to polish it and really dissect. I mean, if that opinion came in at 350, really kind of talk it over but we have a deadline on Monday. Can we vote on this? I mean, I don't even know what the
Deadline
rules
of
are.
January 31st to post.
This is the legal verbiage though for the warrant, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
So it's not like we can like add all kinds of fluff in there like to explain things.
Right.
But we do
That'd be in the
warrant
voter's guide.
explanations. We do a voter guide.
So we do
That'd be in the voter guide.
And you can certainly, if you figure out what the net assessment is, you can certainly put that in the article. So that people understand, we're not raising it on 20 million, we're raising it on this.
I'm not sure you want to put it in the article. I wouldn't
No.
mess with Gordon's language. What I would do is have the answer so that
Or have the answer.
at
with it, yeah.
deliberative or even prior, we can say this is exactly what it means.
And have it in the voter's guide.
Yeah. the
And
voters
in the
guide.
voter's
When-
guide, if you want to, you
When does
vote.
that go out?
We can at least have a draft.
Not
voter
before
guide.
deliberative.
Yeah.
Does that go out before deliberative?
Not usually, but we can have something for deliberative.
And I think in the voter's guide is where you can specify that you're looking to do it for this year or this year only for land.
Right.
It's not in the article.
Could we do some type of forum? I don't want to say a Facebook forum because that's just a nightmare. Like I know the deliberative is questions, but a lot of people don't go there. I don't know. It would have to be private questions. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't want, because you say one positive thing and then there were 20 negative things. Because people have questions and then they don't want to ask in a public place, or they don't go to deliberative because they have a basketball game, or I don't know.
Well, if it's about, like the GMS project or anything like that, they can send an email to that Litchfield School Improvements. If it's a question for the board, they can send it to the board. They can send questions to Mike or Michelle.
Well, I mean, along that idea, it doesn't have to be Facebook. It could be a meet that we host, right? That
Yeah.
ask the superintendent, about the about the school board warrant. Just set
I
up
just
a
think
meeting.
that's
and see
great
who comes.
community outreach. It's
Yeah.
being proactive instead of reactive,
Yep, I agree.
and kind of, we've seen the nastiness that Facebook brings,
Yep. It will come
and
to
we're
that
all
meeting,
not
so-
going to agree, but it would be interesting.
Yeah.
So in reading this article, it almost seems like it would hinder us from doing any spending ahead.
Nope. Because it's a different way of accounting it. So when Corey does the spend ahead, he's booking it one way. This is a different way of
Right.
putting it into a, it's almost the way I envision it. And Corey might think I'm off my rocker on this, but instead of having a trust fund or an expendable trust, you just have this money in the bank. And so you're able to work off of that.
So if we do
You have to
spend
book it and
ahead
explain it.
certain, okay, sorry, hold on.
Still gonna be
Go ahead,
almost
that's-
Similar, similar
Right, that's what they'll
to
say.
what the town does with theirs.
And that's why you have to educate them. It's just for property, but they're not going to understand that, and people won't. They'll look at it as a slush fund.
It's like saving for a house. We're saving for land. You have to
Saving
make
for
it.
anything.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I just forwarded you Gordon's email so you can read it. But he basically said to us, there's not a private company in New Hampshire that doesn't
Right.
retain its profits
Right.
for further growth and, you know,
Well,
things that need to be
what
done.
he actually said was there's not a business in New Hampshire,
Nonprofit
$15 million
organization.
business in New Hampshire that's expected to close their books at the end of the year and then start over the next year.
I know.
And he said, you know, the legislature, which has a lot of business people, say this doesn't make sense. We're asking our school districts to do something that we would not do in private industry. So they tried to model this on the practices that exist.
So I do have a question. So which comes first in terms of if this is passed and we have like Article 7 taking money from the year-end fund, do the articles that are passed, does that money come out first and then the
You-
remainder?
By the
up
order
to
of the
that?
articles.
Fund them in the order. So the first thing that'll
Okay.
happen is the 125 in Article 7 will be put into that fund.
Okay.
And that's no longer fund balance. So whatever's left over is then, if this passes, subject to be retained.
So, but if this passes, are you saying this is a 1 year only
Well, I think
thing, or does this then become a new operating practice?
I think,
That's what
I
that's why I'm
think- and that's why I kind of thought if we put a limit on it that it's just for this year, just for this purpose, I wonder if we might get more support from taxpayers, and they won't see it as they just want to keep all our money.
It
It's
sounds
just
like
a
we
slush
can't
fund.
do that because that would be tied to, we would have to appropriate money and the budget committee can't, they're past
we could-
voting on that.
But if we could limit it just to this year, right?
And we did explain it to them back in 2012 that it was just for that. We weren't going to bring it forward every year. It
Yeah.
was just for that
Do
year.
well, that's my other question, I guess. The language doesn't say it ends at any time, right? It's just
That's
a
what they
different-
changed.
Okay.
No, but with every warrant article that enables something like this, there's a contrary warrant article to shut it back off again. So he's telling you this is the way to enable it.
Yeah.
You can make a commitment. We're going to come back to rescind that next year.
Mhm.
You could say that's your intent.
So I'm sorry.
Or a petition warrant article could come forward shutting it off.
I'm catching up. So we did bring this forward with the 2.5% in 2012.
In 2012, and it was only, at the time, the article was that you could only hold it for 2 years.
Did it pass?
No,
Was it close?
no.
No, the article, the language was very confusing. The explanation was very confusing. And like Brian said, people thought it was just money, slush money.
Slush fund. Okay.
I think it's needed if you want to, do what we want to do. But at the same time, I think it's going to require, explaining this very clearly to them. It's not our intent every year to be doing this. We're looking to buy a piece of land. This is the process we have to go through to buy a piece of land.
And I think we do that with the voter guide. I mean, I think that gets to
Know
everyone.
that in deliberative.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 8.
I'll second. Any other questions or discussion? Are you ready to vote?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's quick, but I understand what we're trying to do and I understand why we're trying to do it. I think it's going to come down to education.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as, we're doing it in the right way.
Okay. Anything else? No? All right. All in favor of adding an article to our warrant, whether it be 8 or another number, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500.
So can I ask, when do we have to decide the order of the articles? That also has to be by that same time. Again, I would just be curious if you want it as 8, or is this something you want moved up, or is this in terms of order of priority? I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but I'd be curious of thoughts.
But I think
Everything up to Article 5, I believe, is prescribed.
Where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, CBA's, historically, it's always been 2.
and they've already ordered this.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
It's been prescribed that that's the order, the operating
We don't
budget
wanna
does
mess
it.
with that.
But then Article 6
So,
is
so then basically 6, 7, and 8, I think you have flexibility on, although you have to keep in mind that the funding is done by the way it allocates out. Although 6 is raising and appropriating.
Yeah, you
so
wouldn't have to worry about
Right.
that.
I think that's definitely, to me, a big priority. And it's the last one that has a tax impact too. So I think leaving it as 6 makes sense. 7 has, I think you leave them in the order that they are.
I think so.
Okay.
So if you
Reasoned
switch,
it out
well,
loud, but
if you switch 7 and 8, you put the contingency fund first, there won't be 125,000.
Yeah.
to put in
Right.
the
No, I think you're right. I just wanted to hear the discussion on it and talk it through and
Yep.
make sure it was, I think it makes sense. Thank you.
All right.
perfect. Well, thank you. And Michelle, you can get that updated. and
I
It's
will.
got to be ready for Monday to publish. So,
Well, actually, we have till the 31st to publish,
okay.
but I was planning on publishing this week.
That's right. I'm forgetting that it's not, we have another
But
week
that's
in there.
okay.
Okay,
That's all right.
perfect.
I mean, you know,
We need to
the
review
sooner the better.
7?
So Michelle, is there action required on the MS 27?
I forget, Brian, does the school board vote on the MS 27? No, right?
I don't think so, no.
We just sign
Okay,
it.
I think we just want to let them know that we did revise it.
Based on what the budget committee did,
Oh.
right? So it says
So that
total's
last
been
change.
revised with the 150 out. Yep. And then the FY 23 default budget is, the number is already in there. And, my feeling is you've already voted on it by approving the warrant article. So I don't know that you have to vote on it separately. So unless, Michelle, you need it.
The only thing is I need to get a cover sheet so that they can sign it. Because the MS 27 has to be signed by the budget committee. The draft, the default budget has to be signed by the board, so, and the articles have to be signed by the board. So if we could have you guys come into the office whenever before we post, and then we can post once those are done.
So you need people, you'll
I
send an
wanna
email
give us a
out when
deadline.
it's
I'm gonna
ready?
send emails to the budget committee and to the board, and
Okay.
yeah, because I gotta get these cover letters, the cover sheets, the sign sheets for them to sign. And I want to check and make sure everything is fine on the MS 27. Want them signing something that could have an error.
Shoot me a
Excellent.
text and I'll swing by.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay. And is that it for the budget
That
committee
is
report?
it for the BA. We're on to the committee reports.
Okay, we already kind of discussed what happened at the budget committee meeting. There you go. Were there any other committee meetings?
Silly's
Is that last
improvement,
Wellness, thank you for the little card.
Oh,
and-
yay. That was Holly's
Was
idea.
very sweet.
So that was great. Wellness is going to have to get rescheduled. We were unable to do it last week. So that's going to be scheduled for February.
Okay,
What was that committee I belonged to last year with Corey?
Joint loss.
Yeah, are we gonna have that committee?
I cannot get any participation on this.
Okay. I just thought
And
I'd
we
ask.
have to by law.
I forgot the
we ha-
name. It's been
But
that
we
long.
have to have it by law, so I don't know what we're gonna do.
Okay.
You guys had a facilities improvement committee, correct?
Uh,
That was on the 12th because I couldn't make it.
on the 12th. Yes, last Wednesday we met and we discussed the LMS project. Mostly we kind of put a pause on GMS and talked about the information that we needed to compile to get out about the LMS project and what that entails and how to present that basically.
We really use it as a workshop session to develop that $5 million choice
Mhm.
document because we're like, how do we have people understand? And, the clarity came out of that you're just going to spend $5 million. It's either buying energy and fixing the existing energy systems
Mhm.
or investing in the building. And so it was a workshop session to get that done.
It was similar to our reimagining GMS also was really a lot of preparation for the meeting that took place yesterday. And he'd already mentioned emergency management meeting met. I wasn't invited to that for some reason.
We canceled.
You just said they met Monday.
So that was the
Oh, the
town
town.
emergency management.
Oh, okay.
And it was a quick meeting that Frank called and got everybody together. So it was not the school emergency management. That's coming up on February
What's that, Friday, the 5th, 4th?
the 4th.
The 4th.
And facilities to meet again on the 26th. And capital improvement committee has a meeting scheduled as of right now for February 7th for the town.
Great. Mr. Stone was at the meeting last night.
What's that?
Pete Stone. Is he on that capital improvement
Yeah.
committee? Yeah, he was at the session last night. Okay, is that all the committees? I guess so, right? Park hasn't met, Liz?
No, it has not.
Okay. All right. That brings us to old
Ju-
business.
Just before we head off that, so next week's meetings, I won't be here Monday for the energy meeting
Mhm.
or the GMS meeting.
Mhm.
But I think it's important that the consultants get together just because they're strategizing toward deliberative and what they need
Yeah.
to do. And so I won't be there. I don't think Corey is going to be there. So
Okay.
you'll have to kind of carry that one.
Yeah, when is the energy one?
Energy. Oh, Dave Ross will be there.
Okay.
And Jen usually goes to the energy one, and Dan is usually at the GMS project. So
Okay.
there'll be some school people, but it won't be anybody from central office.
Yeah, I can
Um,
do the Monday at 11.
Okay, and one's at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
10 o'clock is energy, and 11 o'clock is GMS.
Okay.
And then for the facilities meeting next Wednesday, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to keep that? Do you want to postpone that? I won't be there, so I'm.
Right. I think,
I don't think you have much more conversation than what you're having with the other meetings
yeah, no,
at this point.
right.
So cancel that one?
I would think so.
Okay. So Michelle, can you cancel
Right,
that?
we'll do
Because
the
you
10 o'clock
own
on
that
Monday,
invite.
energy
Yep.
meeting?
Yeah, just send me an invite.
Okay,
You should have it. That's the standing,
the 10 o'clock.
the 10 o'clock. No?
No,
Brian hasn't been there. I can do the 11.
I've never been on that one.
Got it. Let me get that to you then.
Just send me an invite.
We'll do.
Thank you.
So I have February.
Now, can we go to the current COVID
You may.
situation?
Thank you
All
for
right. Old business.
I have COVID fatigue. Let's skip it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
We don't need to see the numbers.
yeah. I think we've all seen the numbers. They're not. They're better than they were,
Mm-hmm.
which
Canceled.
is encouraging. Hopefully, we can.
So I was studying it. So students who are quarantined are because there's someone in the house who has COVID and they haven't met the criteria to come back to school, whether not being vaccinated
Because they're
or.
not vaccinated.
Yeah.
If you're vaccinated, you can come back to school.
Is there a flu or anything going around GMS for the teachers? Because there seems to be a lot of teachers out. Are they watching their kids probably? Is GMS running okay?
So
GMS has 4 out right now, which is less than it has been.
So just, we got some communication from, there were some families frustrated by adding the mask status, keeping it going.
Mhm.
And we've explained that, given where we are with the Omicron surge, given where we are with the numbers, we just felt it was the prudent thing to do and a reasonable ask for a short period of time. So we're optimistic. You can see we extended through the 28th. I suspect, I think I said it earlier, it's going to go probably longer, but we're
think
taking
you're
it
gonna
2
see-
weeks at a
I
time.
think you're gonna see the numbers drop drastically at this point. But at the same time, you look across the country, I mean, it's like, it's still phenomenal, the amount of, cases per day.
Some states are dropping dramatically.
And
So
New York is one of them.
Some
Yeah.
trends going down.
And
Yeah.
so, if it does do that kind of sharp drop, it will be helpful. We're still a little bit unclear because of the new rules, so with students coming back more quickly, what's that going to mean? And I did try to communicate to everybody, even if we were in personal responsibility, if you're coming back from isolation, you have to mask. So, having, keeping the mask kind of normalized makes some sense because this is kind of the situation that we're in.
there was some chatter about the concern that, CDC guidelines now and the DHS recommendations that we follow say if you're vaccinated, you can come back after 5 days. If you're not vaccinated, it's 10 days. Is that right?
Mhm.
Do I have that right? And yet with Omicron, vaccinated individuals are catching it and are spreading it and transmitting it. So is that really I don't know. Are we
Does it say vaccinated or fully vaccinated?
fully vaccinated?
That's with a booster.
Well, if you were eligible,
if you're
if
out.
you're not eligible.
If you're old, I know, we're not kids,
Old
but I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
For,
So-
yeah.
So
booster.
the question has been, I just wanted to, I know you all have heard this, but are we exposing people to more risk because vaccinated kids are coming back earlier?
Or they're masked.
Right.
As
I
long as they're
think
not showing,
vaccination,
as long as they're not showing
the
symptoms.
way I read that, the vaccination status. Sorry, I gotta look at that again.
So let me just share
Yeah,
that,
that was
believe it
on
or not,
that
we
criteria.
changed, I have to change the date of this because we changed the sheet today because the CDC or DHHS, I'm not sure who. Now there are two things. Fully vaccinated means that you've gotten the double dose or the single dose of J&J. That's fully vaccinated.
Oh, so it's
to
not the
date.
booster now?
Up to date means that
Oh,
you've
up to
done
date is
that
different.
and you've
Oh.
received the
Okay.
updated
okay.
booster.
If
If you're
eligible,
eligible.
if
If you're
needed.
eligible.
So notice that in the purple column, it says, I have no symptoms and I am up to date
Okay.
on COVID-19. And down below, we had fully vaccinated, which our definition included the booster. But now we've adopted the new
Up to
language
date.
that's emerged.
Okay.
So it says up to date on COVID-19 means, and we defined it out.
Got it. Okay.
Because if you Googled fully vaccinated, you got the definition of
2 doses.
1 or 2 shots,
Right.
depending on which, right? So.
So with the boost, I feel better about it now with the boost. If we're, we're the
Yeah.
booster
Didn't they
gets you
change
up to
that a
5
couple
days.
weeks
But
ago?
let me tell you what that did.
Yeah.
So it helped some
It
people
was.
and it's been a roadblock for people
Yeah.
because
I know.
we had people who just never got around to the booster but felt they were fully vaccinated. And all of a sudden the rule has come out and now they're not fully vaccinated because they're not up to date.
Is
So-
this document linked on our website somewhere?
It is. It should be.
Where is
I
it?
thought they
It's not
announced
under
that
the
2 weeks
coronavirus.
ago.
It's in the
that
COVID
the government,
report, then
you're
it is.
fully vaccinated if
This
you
is
have your
this was in the email
booster.
that went out to staff.
Now,
Yeah, I'm just
'Cause
trying to
I-
find it myself.
The one
make
that
sure
Polly-
Tommy got his booster before he went back to college
that
because
Polly
he's
did?
technically
Right.
fully
You sent it?
vaccinated.
Yeah.
So I
Change
think
the
what
wording.
was really difficult.
When did you send it?
I sent it to SAU staff
wait.
this weekend.
You did?
That's fine. Just it's
I'll put it there.
sorry.
I'll put it
No,
there.
you're
right now.
good.
We'll get it there.
I think what was difficult was at the same time as the CDC is issuing this updated guidance, they also then made a different age group eligible for the booster, which changed whether they were considered fully vaccinated or up to date.
Correct.
So, for example, and I don't mind sharing my status with my kids, Sophia had it for the second time in 2 months, 10 years old. So she had it November 8th. She got it again January 6th. The older two went to school the first time, fully vaccinated, no problem. The second time was right in between with this guidance. They aren't up to date because they got their vaccinations back in June with the school clinic. So they are fully vaccinated under that terminology, but
But
they
not
are not
boosted.
up to date because they hadn't had a booster yet. And literally, boosters were approved for 12 to 15 the night before.
Get appointments for them.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
the
Right,
night
but,
before
but
Sophia
was she eligible for the booster?
Sophia wasn't. She wasn't my issue. The
Okay.
big kids became eligible that the night before
Because
she
of the
tested
transition,
positive
right.
because they approved it for 12 to 15, the booster.
Right, so I would see that she's fully, I'd say that they're fully vaccinated.
But they're not now.
They are fully vaccinated.
are,
They're not
but they're
up to
up to date.
date with the
What do you
new.
want me to
Yeah.
call this?
So that was the struggle of why we kept ours home as we
Nice
kind of tried to
procedures.
figure out which it was. I think, again, we're struggling with the changing guidance
Yes.
and the changing approvals.
Mhm.
Hopefully this starts to be
And the greater
clearer
complexities.
as all age groups now are approved for boosters.
Boosters.
12 and up at this point. I don't think the younger kids are approved for boosters, but they just got approved
just
for
got
the
them,
originals.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. And then the other thing is, New Hampshire was behind the Omicron curve. A lot of states are seeing a decline right now because they peaked with Omicron. We just started getting Omicron cases in our state. We're just getting there. So I understand the concern about vaccinated, or I don't even want to use the word vaccinated. I
No,
want to
up to
say
Yeah.
up to date folks
Yeah.
that could spread it as well.
I do feel better now that that language has changed to up to date and not fully vaccinated because there is a waning of the protection and there is, higher viral load and higher transmission if you haven't had the booster. So
I still think there's a lot of families that are struggling with getting a test
yes.
and not just getting the test, but getting the results of their test that
Means
are,
their kids are out even longer.
that are
Right.
taking a week. And
Yeah.
so
Yep,
for
they
some
are.
of them,
that one we got the test from the state, those PCR tests.
Mhm.
It's ridiculous
Yeah.
how long it takes. I mean, it was
Really?
like 10 days, literally.
Really?
Yeah.
From getting the test in hand. I mean, it was literally 4 days to get the test mailed to us, all four of us. And then
What test you talking about?
You didn't do a drive-through?
PCR.
I got
No,
mine.
well, we did
Mine
the
in 2 days.
antigen test right away on Saturday, and we knew that we had 3 positives, so we're like, okay. And then
It's there.
we wanted to just I wasn't positive, and I was convinced I was going to be. So I was like, let's get all these tests in hand. And then it was like another 5 days to get the result. It's
It
ridiculous.
is really
Test.
frustrating.
What test I don't understand.
there's a state PCR. The
Yeah,
state
there's
has
2 types.
drive-through PCR
Yeah.
sites set up that are taking anywhere from 6 to 10 days to get your PCR results.
Takes 2
back.
days.
But
no,
you
I'm
can
talking
also-
about
you
I'm
can
talking about the one
also-
that you
this-
mentioned on Facebook.
yeah.
that
Oh,
I
the
had
vault?
The vault
the
test.
vault test. Yes.
Okay.
So the
vault
state
Well,
has
the vault certainly doesn't vault you there, does it? Right then. Next time, just go to a drive-up.
That's a saliva test.
All you
Yeah.
have to do is make a doctor's appointment and they swab you when you go in there and they'll
Right.
let you know whether they'll let you in
Right.
the door. That's the only time I've had
well,
this
that's what we had
test.
done previously
Yeah.
when we had thought, but
Oh,
yeah.
this was.
I'd like you to look at this.
I think we should
warrant.
start accepting home tests.
I think
I agree.
with
Yeah.
some guidelines and some in some situations, I think the home test makes a lot of sense.
I told Tina that, and I told Dr. Jetty that in order for my son to go back to school, he has to have a negative. It can be a test, and I think he has to take a picture of it next to his computer and a timestamp. And you have to trust people, and
What if he reported that he was positive?
he's not positive.
He has
He
to have a
cannot go
negative.
back on campus. They will not give him his
Oh,
keys
yeah, but-
until he produces a negative test, whether it's a home test,
yeah.
a PCR, a vault, or whatever. And I have 10 of the home tests, so he's taking a home test.
There you go.
It's right in the kitchen table.
Takes 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you go blue,
I
go blue.
I mean, the home tests are now readily available.
97% accurate? Is that what we're
Well,
hearing?
in
If
some
you take
cases,
two?
if you take two. So I think if we require you have to take one, wait 24 hours and take the other one,
I mean, keeping kids out for 20 days because a sibling has it it's not right.
Well, that's done now.
Well,
yeah,
Right?
we're not
no,
doing that anymore.
No, what about the little kids?
if
They are. They
if,
have to.
if they're not up
They're
to
not
date
that-
on their vaccines,
I thought that was 10 days. That's 20 days still?
it's
The
10
last
days.
exposure.
the last exposure piece, right?
So, but then we get into, so if you have your kid in his own room with his own bathroom, is that considered
Right.
last exposure at the beginning of the week, or is last exposure, unless you have a special ventilation system in your house?
And that's why I think there's going to be determination as far as the amount of days and you had no symptoms that you home test and then come back
Right.
to school.
So it's back to when you had that last exposure. And so because they've sped up the ability to get back, they don't have that language in there about isolating
Interesting.
in their own room or basement or whatever.
What do we have to do to have home tests be allowed? Do we vote on it? Do we beg the nurses? What is the next step?
We vote on it.
We vote on it?
So
I
a
think
couple
the
of things with,
nurses have to- I
the home
mean,
test.
They're gonna be the ones that have to set the criteria.
The nurses are taking the home test for the positive, right? So if somebody submits and says, I did the home test, I am now positive, it starts the clock ticking. So they are taking that, and they have been. The challenge is it's a negative, and so I can return back. They've actually, I mean, this is awful to say, but they found one negative test that was just an internet picture, Google negative tests, and that's what was submitted. It was not an actual test of an actual Litchfield child. That's part of what
And
happens.
I'm sure
People
that's
are
gonna
going to
happen.
do
It's
that.
no different than as individuals that possibly
school setting.
have symptoms and
They
they
come
don't,
to school.
they come to school.
Like Jack might have COVID and we don't even know. He already had COVID. But you know what I mean? Like my Michael might have had it and I've been sending him to school the whole time.
But
No
I think
symptoms.
too, if we set the criteria and we're pretty conservative with the criteria and the what's required of the home tests. Maybe we'll get more parents actually testing at home to find out if they're positive or negative instead of just sending them to school with a sniffle and a cold, or so it might filter out more cases than of kids coming to school.
I did order my free ones yesterday. They were
Like the
so now I have
UPC
like
code,
12.
Like if there's an identifier code, that's for the PCR
time-
test. We had to take a
Yeah.
big part of the
I
process.
like the
So it's-
timestamp.
You have to
and-
hold up
and
the tube in front of the camera, and it's it has a unique number. With the
you could even do a
test result.
Zoom.
Yeah.
Multiple.
Oh, that's
so
it.
wouldn't
That would be
a
interesting, like videotape
generic
it.
image.
Well,
I know it's
the
sad for
challenge
people
is
following the rules.
We're back to fully staffed and nurses, right? So
Yeah.
we now have 3.
Oh yay!
But I will tell you, they are exhausted.
I know.
Covering. And I worry that, who's doing the Zoom monitoring, right? So it's easy to say that, but who is it that's sitting there and watching that? And I try to keep the school in the school lane the best I can. And that's why I've encouraged us to stay out of the testing lane, because that's not the testing we do. We do other type of testing, but not, swab testing. So, but if it's something that the board wants us to enact rules around, we can do it.
Why can't we have the parent bring their kid in and swab their kid? They're going to be home with the child anyway and sit there in front of the nurse or in the office. And then you can,
I suggested that in November.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
nurses don't have to do it. The parents will do it. I enjoyed stepping.
The kid can do it.
Oh, the kid could do it.
Well, the challenge we had with it was, if you're in a health office, it's got a lot going on. And I can tell you, Chen will tell you how much is going on in the
Yeah.
middle school nurse's office or
But
the
you could
elementary.
have a session after. I mean, if
Yeah,
they're willing
you could,
to put in the
but
time.
who's going to,
Right.
just who's
Right.
going to do that? So, because we had talked about it, and even if you're bringing potentially COVID positive students into the building to sample, you don't want to do that during the school day. You want to do it after hours. So we just got into the whole, how are we going to do it?
I think it's no different. I think it's no different from the very beginning of this, as far as having the trust in the public out there. They're going to do the right thing. Are there going to be some that are not? Yes. The mass majority are going to do the right thing, not sending the child if they test positive for COVID. And I think that's how we have to look at it.
the other part of it too, I mean, I think that makes me feel like we should be accepting the home tests is that the people who want to be vaccinated at this point, it is now open to 5 and up. Whereas when we had that up to grade 6 where they didn't have the opportunity to be vaccinated yet, I had some concerns because parents were sending their that may have wanted to be vaccinated but couldn't be yet. And so as we get to the point where those that want to be and choose to be and have made that choice to be have had that opportunity, and I know boosters are still hard to come by for some of the older kids right now, but
Rite Aid, Londonderry, 285 openings. I swear to God.
They're all over the place. There's openings
And you can
everywhere.
get
They released a lot
It's just
more.
a shameless plug.
But my point is that at this point, the same as I felt at the beginning when we had this conversation in August, that there's some personal responsibility for that grade 7 and up. That is now age 5 and up. And so that combined with, again, I understand our nursing staff is exhausted, but we need to get these kids back to school sooner with remote not being an option anymore, with it literally being taken away as an option. Having had a kiddo who, like I said, COVID twice, so home for 10 days each time, that's a lot. She's missed a lot of school. She's really missed a lot. And so if at the end of this, and she's not the only one. I mean, if you look at the number, there's 132 total students at LMS. You know,
I think the double testing option is a viable one, 2 tests within 24 hours. I think probably one of the biggest arguments for me to accept antigen tests is that you just, the wait time for these PCR tests is
Ridiculous.
so unreasonable.
Yeah.
It's so unreasonable.
It's no different than a kid who is asymptomatic wearing his mask down here or on his chin.
well, and we're getting to the point where I don't know if you saw on Facebook, but people are saying, just
you
lie
saw it
and
on
say
Facebook.
your kid is positive.
Mhm.
Lie and say your kid is positive because the quarantine's shorter for a positive
Yeah, right.
than it is for a negative.
Than it is just for being around someone. If you're not,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So just lie. I mean,
So now we'll be Googling positive tests. I
Right,
mean, it's like,
honestly, like that's what I mean. People are saying, okay, you're only going to be stuck home 5 days if you do this versus if you say this. And so, I mean, we're at the point where I think there has to be that personal responsibility, and we can't police this as much anymore. I mean,
We're just,
we have to live with it. I mean, Brian's been saying it, Liz has been saying it, and I'm slowly coming on board. We have to live with it. I mean, it's
because
to
you've been living with it.
Yeah.
More than any of us.
Hey, literally been living with it. And I mean, we have to get these kiddos educated. I mean, I really worry about how far behind they're going to be at the end of these 2 years.
and I do think, I do think if my kid has a sniffle, it's easy to just take an antigen test, keep them out for a day, take another one tomorrow, and send them back, potentially send them back. Whereas,
So he's got a sniffle and he's taken 2 tests. And he's negative both times. He's going to wear a mask.
well, he's wearing masks. My kids are wearing masks
Right.
anyway, but
It was so nice to see more kids back in school. Like some of the classrooms were
Yeah.
full because in Hudson they do take the antigen test. I haven't seen the nurse all year because she's stuck in her office, but it was so nice. I'm like, there were like 22 kids in here. I haven't seen that in a long time.
So-
Because they're feeling a little under the weather, but they'll take the test.
so do we get
And they've
nurses'
been
input
considered
on
20 days, yeah.
what the criteria are? Is it different if you're symptomatic or if you're asymptomatic, or
I mean, I think the directive is clear from the board that we want them to accept home tests. I guess
it's going to take them some time to figure
they
out.
need to set the criteria, and I think they're the
Right.
people to set that criteria.
agree.
And it's not
Right.
going to necessarily be tomorrow that this starts,
I think it's going to
but
be soon,
it needs
Yeah.
to be soon.
very
yeah.
soon.
Mhm.
so let me do this. I will ask tomorrow that they begin to write the criteria for accepting the home test. And we'll work to get it developed and put it out.
I mean,
I would-
Massachusetts is distributing home tests to every teacher and every student, just for them to double check, and yeah, come on in.
But
They
if
just
I
pa-
take
they
one
just
from
passed that
my
yesterday.
office, I have to go home. If I ask my nurse for an antigen test, they have to send me home.
Why?
Do?
I don't know. They do. So
That's
I'm going to
a
ask for
little
one tomorrow and the next day.
It's not stockpiling.
The days you want off.
I will just say that, the other thing, and maybe it's Omicron, but there's weird things happening, like multiple positives.
Yeah.
So the old rule of, hey, you're all set for 90 days seems to be out the window.
Mhm.
I know of
He
a
is
colleague
happy, Sue.
who is like, everybody in my household is COVID positive, but me. I wake up every morning, I take a
Yes,
test, and I go to work because I'm negative,
Yeah.
but I don't know why I'm negative. And I think part of it is that the vaccine is
Right, because
doing-
you were positive the week before. And not knowing.
or the vaccine,
Probably.
it's everybody's individual immune system.
Yeah.
So the
Right.
vaccine, in a way, your immune system is fighting off. You're exposed to it. You have it, but your body's stopping it from turning
Yeah.
into something. And that's just lucky you, right?
But I think some of us are so tired because our body is always fighting COVID, and that's why everyone's exhausted.
So I we'll do that. We'll ask the nurses to put something together and have our admin team work on it.
If
So
anybody happens to be on Facebook and sees a post that says something like, "Hey, the school board approved," slow down.
we were in the South Central superintendent call last Friday. these guidelines were well underway. It's not like we woke up Friday and said, hey, we should write something, right? We were working on it. We were inspired by another district and improved upon it. In the call, though, there was one district that said, I haven't even gotten to it yet. So they're still at the old rules. Everybody else, there were some who had implemented it, and there were several who did what we did. And I think there was wisdom in waiting for a 3-day weekend, especially when you're changing around the days, right? It kind of played in our favor. But anyway, I did say to the other superintendent, I said, remember, tortoise beats hare. Because if you go too fast on this thing, now you're making 18 corrections because
Right.
all the what if questions that we
Right.
benefited from waiting. So I'm okay. At times, I'm okay being tortoise,
Yeah.
taking our time on
And
it.
there were, I mean, we did get some correspondence. When are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? But we did it right mostly. And we've only had to fine tune it rather than, I know other districts have
Reel it
put something
back.
out and they've
Yeah.
had to put 3 more things out to make corrections. So, well, I'm glad we're all on the same page on that. Thank you.
And I know the nurses are overwhelmed, but we're not trying to put anything more on their plate. We're just,
Yeah. With them not
No,
having to
the-
conduct the test or monitoring them.
Yeah, this
I think we just need to trust the parents out there.
Just before coming here, I was on the phone with an angry parent, and it was over a 15-day. It was like the worst case scenario that you can pull out of this chart.
Oh.
And, but I will tell you that the parent just doesn't even believe in all this COVID stuff. So, you're dealing with so many things because I'm like, well, I could connect you with other parents who are incredibly concerned about the COVID.
Right,
So,
right.
remember, we are trying to walk
Yeah.
that balancing act between everybody's beliefs on it. So.
When you're getting correspondence that says you're too lenient and you're too strict at the same time, I think you've struck the right balance
Yeah.
at that point.
Right. So nobody's happy.
Yep. Welcome to COVID.
Yeah.
Mm,
All right, that's what we had for situation updates. So.
We updated it.
Facility use.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle. What can you take this because you deal with the facility use question?
So,
So this
I
is
know- The board has given us the guidance for school-sponsored events for facility use, which we have been following. Everybody has to have a plan, a mitigation plan. Masking could most likely be, inside. Well, now we require it inside the building, so we're masking up. Outside groups, we have not decided on yet. And by outside groups, I mean Litchfield groups that are bringing in outside groups with them for events, not meetings. Like the Boy Scouts can meet, the Girl Scouts can meet. That's fine. So I had somebody from a Cub Scouts troop email me and say they wanted to know if there was any space at LMS for them to use. I assumed, maybe I should have asked, but I assumed that it was for meetings when I found out that it was actually for some kind of banquet or banquet where it's not really cooking food, it's snacks. And they're having wildlife stuff brought in, exhibits and art exhibits. And they did give us a COVID mitigation plan, which is very good, but how do you guarantee the outside group has a plan of their own? And with our custodial staffing being challenged, meaning we don't have enough, coming in on a Sunday, I don't know if we could find somebody to work it. We have to have a custodian in the building.
Yeah, I don't think we're at a point right now to do it, to be honest with you.
Neither do
Yeah.
I, but I wanted to bring it to the board anyway, because I would like some direction on. I've turned away a lot of outside groups because we just don't have the staffing and the protocols we'd have to disinfect that whole cafeteria and
That's what it comes down- I think it
charge
just comes down to
Litchfield
person.
groups the money that we're paying our custodians.
Why do we have to disinfect it?
if an organization had a banquet in
Yeah.
there, so we clean it
Large group events.
Friday night, so it's ready for Monday
I
morning
see.
lunch.
So it would
And
be
if
on
you
a
have a
Friday.
group in there Sunday
Okay.
afternoon,
So I guess my thought is, yes, deny them because we don't have the staff.
Yeah.
But I don't know that if it's outside of school hours, I don't know if is it a COVID issue or is it,
Well, it could be if if they're using a cafeteria where kids en masse and eat.
sure, but like if something were in the gym or a classroom or something like that.
I think a more open area, because I know that the guidance from the guidance I read today said something about outdoor ones, better suited for that
Yeah.
because you don't have to worry about disinfecting.
Right.
But a cafeteria, a gym, depending on the size, I would think.
Okay.
Auditorium, depending if they distanced.
So they clean the gym after every the JV or the town basketball league on Saturday
I
mornings?
don't think.
I don't think they do, but I do think there's a difference between a basketball game in a gym and eating in a calf. I mean,
Well, and then there's wildlife in the calf. I mean, I realize they're in cages and stuff, but when you bring in snakes, kids are going to want to go up and touch
That was
those.
a pre-COVID. They've had animals come
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. I don't,
Speaking of,
you haven't even, can't you say contingent upon a
Oh, really?
cafeteria or a janitor working?
Well, I did explain that to them, that it wasn't just the COVID protocols. I did read their protocols and they are really good.
And your
And
zookeeper
they
has to
even
wear a mask?
he tried to suggest a few other things like, well, if we don't bring the snacks in, I said, that doesn't help. We don't have the staffing. That's the problem. If I had known it was a banquet a month ago, this wouldn't even be an issue because I would have said, we just don't have the staffing. I can ask certainly the director, if he can ask if somebody wants to work that date, but there's no guarantee.
Then that's what you said.
Doesn't school dude make you like make the group fill in what the purpose of the event is?
Yes, but I don't get the approvals first. They go to, depending on the school, there's a routing order. If there was nobody manning that, if like, let's say the first person that gets that to
Yeah.
approve is out, it'll come to me. If they're not here, they don't work here anymore. It's going to come to me if we don't assign anybody that position on the routing.
I can't see why they can't have the animals in the gym and put their snacks under the canopy. You can't eat inside and you have to spread out in the gym and they have to wear masks. I hate denying any type of thing.
especially locally based.
In Boy Scouts,
When do they want to do it?
It's in February.
What day?
Later in February.
What day?
What's
a Saturday or a Sunday?
It's a Sunday.
It's basketball.
at the LMS,
Yeah.
Yeah,
cleans
there's
up
the
after
gym is
them?
already taken. The gym is already
and
taken.
nobody cleans up after them.
LRDL, they
Clean-
clean up
they clean
after
the floor and
themselves.
the
They're very
bleachers.
good.
Oh.
They're very good. They disinfect the doors and the door
Oh, okay.
handles and all that
So
stuff.
is
They're really good. And I have no problem having them go in there. You're talking about 70 or 80 people.
So again, it sounds to me, breaking it down, it sounds like a couple of different issues. I don't have a problem with outside groups coming in
Mhm.
because we do that with other schools coming in for basketball
Correct.
games, or if playing. If I don't know if rec plays,
Yeah.
other
Towns,
teams
yeah.
towns that come in, but we do that in that scenario. So there's that. There's the eating scenario. So if we want to say there's a no food requirement across the board, again, I don't know that I agree that we need to do that, but there's that issue. And then there's the staffing issue, which is if we don't have the staff, we don't
I think
have
that's
Right.
the
And
staff.
that is
To me, that's the
the
main
main
reason. So you
issue.
don't-
is the
But
staffing.
assuming if there was a staff and a custodian that was able to clean up after that event and whatnot, then I wouldn't have a problem with that event
Right.
being
And
held.
if they
I
wanted to
agree.
use the kitchen, we would have to have a food service person in there. And again, we're challenged there. So
Right.
Yeah.
I
We
mean, if
haven't
we
asked.
can get somebody, I just wanted board
No, they'd
to know
also-
what the board
And
was
they'd have to
thinking.
incur the cost also.
I just didn't know, how the board was thinking about that because we okayed school-sponsored events, but we had never broached the outside groups.
So it sounds like you want us to go back to what your policy says.
Yeah.
We're gonna follow whatever it is, and then if it incurs costs or whatever, depending on the group, we just follow the policy.
And if there's no
So-
custodian or volunteer, sorry,
Right,
that's it.
and
We
we,
can't-
when we approve it, we say it's contingent on
Make it good.
the custodian.
Staffing.
Yeah.
Right.
staffing. So,
Right.
For a time and a half.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought non-school sponsored things were already happening.
They
Such
were
as
like,
booster meetings or PTO
Yeah.
meetings or
I thought they were being approved on a one-off, like your.
That's not an
approval.
outside group either. These are
Right.
outside
you
groups.
take like Litchfield Youth Wrestling. I mean, they're
They're
taking
there,
place when the building's already staffed, right? So they're wrestling.
Yep, so basketball, right? Basketball's happening.
They
I
met
just-
with
I
us,
just
they've got a
want-
COVID plan, et cetera.
Yeah.
I just wanted the board to be aware that if we weren't able to staff it or we had to charge them because of the extra cleanup, that was okay. And it could be a Litchfield group.
Yep.
Yeah, is that in the policy
Hmm?
that we charge them for?
It isn't because
No,
the
think
Litchfield
so.
groups are supposed to be free, but if we have to have our custodian in there
That makes sense.
for a couple of extra hours to disinfect or something like that, I mean, we're incurring
Maybe the
that
form
cost.
could have on it, like, subject to custodian availability. If no custodian is available, would you be willing to fund a custodian? Do you know what I mean?
We have to, well, yeah, and we have
fund
to
it
give,
anyway.
well, it's all access. See, we
Yeah,
can't
right,
give the
right.
group access. And we can't give somebody who's not employed access.
We have to have somebody from the staff there.
Right.
But Michelle, just to clarify, 80, they're not all Litchfield participants,
No,
right?
this one, no,
Yeah,
they're not.
So that's the thing that made this
okay,
stand
got it.
out is
That's
that,
when there could be
you
a
know, the
charge,
troop might
right?
have
Yeah.
15 kids in it, and then they're having this event where others are going to come in. So it was
I see.
beyond just the Litchfield.
It was beyond the scope of the
I
policy,
see.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the staffing was an issue, and I just wanted the board to be aware of the staffing issue, and that if I did deny somebody because of it, I didn't want it to come back here and the board say, why did you do that? So that kind of looking for
No, I think
board
that's-
direction.
I think the staffing issue makes perfect sense.
I mean, if Litchfield Youth Wrestling wanted to host a regional tournament,
Mhm.
that's a separate question than Litchfield Youth Wrestling, right? So that's the
Who are they
That's sort
having
of like
come
the
in?
thing
Other
with
Boy
Scouts.
Scouts from other places? Is it a Boy Scout jamboree thing or?
I don't know that it's called a jamboree. But
Oh, well, I don't
feel-
know.
But that's the term I
Yeah.
had in my mind. So,
Yeah.
See, I guess I don't have a problem with outside people coming in. I mean, it might have been when we were all worried about crossing the border and, traveling outside of New England and stuff, but that's all. Nobody.
And
cares
that's
about
why
that
I brought
anymore.
it forward, because
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how the board was
Yeah.
thinking on that, because we never really broached that. So
Right.
if that's okay with the board,
Depending
and then
where we are
depending
now,
on
then-
staffing, and then,
I think you
okay,
got it. I think we're back to
case by
full-
case basis kind
and
of thing,
full
yeah.
policy. We
Well,
follow
and
the
I think
policy.
keeping in that they submit a COVID plan, right? I mean,
Right.
I think
It sounds like they did.
absolutely.
They have a great COVID plan. This is what I don't understand. They have a great COVID plan, but then I read that they were bringing the animals in and stuff like that, and I'm like, well, wait a minute.
We attended that event a couple of years ago, and it was in the LMS CAF, and there were snakes and
Ugh.
turtles and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
It just
Turtles
comes,
are the
it just
worst.
comes down whether or not you get a janitor in there to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turtles are the worst.
Well, if I can get a custodian. to
Oh, the
work it,
blue
I
tongue
will.
skink.
It's
I had a skunk in my house.
salmonella.
I had them come to the house.
Skink or a skunk?
Skink.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
Moving along.
thank you. I will take care of
Maybe some
that.
crows.
Morning.
All right, I
You're
think
frickin'
that
dead
brings
horse
us
6 times
to community input. Oh, the manifest.
It's all set.
Thank you.
Has it got 3 signatures?
It's all set. It's right there.
Great. Any
You get
questions?
to
I have
sign
to
it
sign
before
it
you
before
leave.
I
Not
go.
that anybody here could answer any questions. And that brings us to non-public.
Still looking.
Oh,
Oh, community
No,
input.
community
Nobody is here for community input.
is this Brian again?
Yes, it is.
I'm recognizing your number now.
All right.
Look at this. Watch, Brian. Look up there. Deny entry.
Oh,
You can say Jesus.
Oh,
oh, you're fresh.
all right. So with that, I'll take a motion to go into non-public. According to RSA 91-A:3, is it 311?
311.
It's
311?
311.
Okay.
Roman numeral 2.
Oh, it's okay. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or in the investigation of any charges against him, unless the employee affected, 1, has a right to a meeting, and 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the hiring of any person as a public employee. Or C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless this person requests an open
Think so.
meeting. Brian?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
Heidi? And
Yes.
I'm a
It's all clear,
yes.
but who
With
knows
that,
what
we'll go into non-public
info things
and
can
say
come up
thank
in the
you
meeting
and
if we
have a
ask.
good evening.